Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to begin this afternoon's briefing meeting, Tuesday, November 3rd. It's 2 p.m. First up is we're having advisory committee reports, and I'm looking for Ryan Richards.
I saw him. There's Ryan.
Where is he?
Right back there in the back.
Oh, there he is. Yeah. Please come forward, Mr. Richards.
Good afternoon, members of the board and larger than usual members of the public. Construction Advisory Committee had, well, about a meeting and a half. We had a meeting before we could officially have a meeting, so we just sat around and looked at each other for a little bit. But after the names were nominated and the committee members approved, our first meeting was approximately, well, a month ago. In the first board meeting, essentially all we had accomplished was nominations of the chair and vice chair, which happens to be me again, lucky you, and Molly Scott, also in the back row, hiding back there, is our vice chair with Christel Construction. We set out to outline an agenda for this upcoming year and was brainstorming on ideas on how to be the most useful to the district. And outlined our schedule in that we will be looking at your high school prototype and see if there are any evolutionary changes or needs programmatically to the building that we could take a look at. First off, in November, we were going to look at whether that single building complex that was Island Coast still makes sense in certain aspects. I understand there's some security concerns with after-hours programs, basketball or, games in the gymnasium being eventually spill out into the rest of the school and being able to shut down parts of the building while still maintaining your means of egress requirements. So, maybe one building, granted that single point of entry is a strong emphasis, doesn't necessarily need to be one single building. Maybe it's 2 or 3 buildings so that after-hour programs can, function without entering the main school facility. So we'll be looking at some programmatic issues as well as the constructability of what that does to your high school prototype design if you start breaking it into 2 or 3 buildings. And with the construction types, parts would be 3-story, parts would be 1-story, and we'll be looking at those as well. So that's, November and our December meetings, we plan to get into more depth on that, and hopefully be able to report some recommendations at that time. As of right now, it's essentially a scheduling exercise. January and February, we had earmarked for, the site plan review, development, and constructability reviews. Along some subject lines as does tilt wall still make sense in the current construction climate? Is masonry now more cost effective? There are a number of different ways to look at different aspects of the building components. So that's essentially what we had tried to break off and chew on this year. As always, we're open to suggestions and anything the board may be looking at, but this is what we decided to attack in a vacuum on our own, essentially. So I guess I'll wrap it up with that and leave it open to any comments you may have.
Thank you. Any comments, board members?
No, thank you very much.
We do have our reorg meeting next week, and we will be talking about committees at that time if there is an interest on the board's part in providing some further direction to you. We'll have an opportunity to talk about it at that time. Thank you for your report. Mrs. LaRiviere, did you have a...
No, I said, you're right. That's a very good time for us to discuss that.
Ryan does an outstanding job as chairman. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next is Mr. Brian Rist, Chair of Continuous Systemic Improvement Advisory.
Good afternoon. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here today in a pretty nice little crowd. We've actually met a couple of times now, and the first one was more procedural, but What we decided to do as a board, and really as our task force is a really great group of people, to really take the strategic plan that y'all created and break it down into, I think there were 7 components of it, and then look at each component and give some comment or ideas that we thought may be helpful to the whole thing. A couple of things that we did notice right out the go is that a lot of the objectives or the measuring tools that you have in your strategic plan are based on data that isn't at you don't have control of. It's coming from the state. And it's very difficult to evaluate something if none of the criteria do you have control of it. So one of the recommendations, and this is very early in the discussion, is to establish some yardsticks that you guys have control of so that you can quicker judge what's going on with the strategic plan. And while we evaluate it, there really isn't anything that is actually complete or even to a point where we can really measure it. So that was one of our early comments. The other concern, and I'm speaking on behalf of the task force, is that we wanted to get some feedback from y'all that as we propose things to you and as I stand here today, to try to get some feedback from you on what you think we're doing and how we're doing at it so that we know that if we're moving in the right direction or not. So, and I know that you're having a meeting next week and perhaps you can address it at that point, but it seemed concerning to some of the members of the task force that we're going to go and put forth ideas and not necessarily get feedback back. So hopefully we can cure that. But other than that, I'm here to answer any questions you might have or get some feedback from you guys.
Perfect, thank you. Board members, any questions?
No, I just want to thank Mr. Rist for being brave enough to take on the chair with that
It's
very
quite a
active
crowd.
group. We certainly appreciate your input. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, just a moment. I want to thank you and give you kudos that next week you will not be having your meeting, but instead coming to the legislative session in lieu of it. I really appreciate that you're willing to come out for that and participate in that discussion.
Well, thank you. It was an idea of one of our task force members, but it really will help us to understand, a lot of this has to do with funding and the different direction that maybe the legislation is taking. So in order for us to be more of an aid to you guys, we kind of have to see how that falls into place. So yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Curriculum Advisory, Ms. Patty Lochner.
Good afternoon, and board members, Superintendent Atkins and Mr. Martin. The Curriculum Advisory Committee has had 2 meetings since our last report in June, and you should have my report in front of you. I'd like to thank Mrs. La Riviere for being our board liaison, and she did chair the reorganization meeting in September where we elected a chair and vice chair. And she shared some other information that she would be doing legislatively, which we appreciate. And then she gave an update on the Chromebooks that was presented at the DAC meeting, and teachers seem to be have positive response on them and the students that are using them. We we were given a link to the AP history book out of many in order to review and determine if it's an appropriate resource for AP history. And we discussed it at the October meeting. Now I'm going to tell you, ladies, and if Mr. Teuber is listening, don't take that as an insult, but that book is about this thick. And I went through it. I might have been a kindergarten teacher for 40 years, but I have a minor in American history, so it was very interesting for me. At the October meeting, the social studies coordinator, Nicole Stroh, reviewed the instructional material adoption and how we went about it and month by month what happened. And I didn't put all that, but it's in the minutes that are on the website. And answered some questions. We then had 2 teachers, Adam McGarry from Fort Myers High and Mike Aru from Island Coast High School, who gave a presentation on how they use the AP History resource text, what the ancillary materials were, and other resources in their AP History classes, and explained the soapstone method they use to get the students' opinions on the information that they read. And I'm going to go over those, even though you have them written down for the audience. S was for speaker, a view of who wrote it, example of a Federalist versus an anti-Federalist back in the day. O, occasion, why it was written. A, audience, who it was written for. P, purpose, summary, S. And then tone was anger, happiness, what attitudes do you want your audience to feel? How will your attitudes enhance the effectiveness of your piece? And then choose a few words or phrases that will reflect a particular attitude. Some of the key points brought up by the teachers that gave the presentation, these are not in your notes, but in the minutes. Both agreed that this book is a good resource, but they use many resources to help students learn the content in the ancillary materials, etc. And it's well written as far as facts. The book is socially written rather than political, which they make up with other resources. It is used in other school districts along with small colleges, and the book has a nice chronological flow. Also, resources are included within the point of interest rather than all in the back of the book. And each chapter of the book has an opening story that hooks students into the reading, and at the end of the chapter you can find review questions. And I enjoyed those opening readings and got hooked on the first opening reading about a tribe of Native Americans that lived outside of St. Louis back before we ever knew that they existed. Through archaeological diggings and things, they found out this. And I never knew that, and being part Native American, I was like, whoa, okay. And another thing that I did not know was that AP history teachers have to submit a syllabus to the College Board of how they are covering the content, which is a good thing. And students must be well-rounded, have analytical skills, and be able to use critical thinking when completing the course for AP history. A motion was made and approved to make the following recommendation to the school board. The committee did discuss it as a text and as a resource that supports the objectives of the College Board expectations, and we felt that was good. While we understand why some consider the book out of many to be a biased book, we as a committee have confidence in our teachers' ability and commitment to utilize the other resources available to them and their skills and the skills of their students to effectively use the book, despite the bias that some may perceive. We agree with the teachers that to switch to an alternative at this time would be an unacceptable disruption to the educational process and detrimental to students. The Curriculum Advisory Committee does recommend continued use of the book out of many as a resource for advanced placement in U.S. history. Remember, advanced placement is like taking a college course. And that's where many of us that took history in high school went to college and took advanced placement history and learned some more details and facts and things that we didn't know. And I think I've told you this story before, if you don't mind. My dad was a teacher, and I took American history from his best friend in high school and went and was just wanted to know more about Pearl Harbor and read everything I could get my hands on. And when I went to college, there was more information and some things that led some people to believe that maybe we knew that that was going to happen in a sense. And one day my high school history teacher was at the house, and I looked at him and I said, "You lied to us about Pearl Harbor." And he looked at my dad and said, "She's been to college." So we just want you to consider that recommendation. And if you do get an opportunity to look at it, read the opening part of the first chapter, which was very interesting to me. And I thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lochner. Board member comments.
Thank you very much.
Just one thing to share, and the book is quite thick and quite heavy, and one of the questions that we have heard is where there's no bibliography. There is a bibliography, but it's about this thick in a PDF file. So it's not included within the book just because of the size of the book. So we were glad to have that clarification and know we had access to that.
Other comments? No. I do want to thank the committee for taking this on, because we did hear quite a bit as a board about this textbook last year, and it's nice to have a community group with a mix of different interests take a look at this for us and make a recommendation. So I appreciate that work. Thank you very much.
And yes, you will find the bibliography link in the minutes, which are on the website. Thank you very much.
District Advisory Council, Cindy Crosby.
Good afternoon. I'm a little nervous, I'm sorry. Okay, so we've had 2 meetings in September and October. In our first meeting, Dr. Atkins addressed us. He was at that time the interim superintendent. He touched on some key points of the district strategic plan, and also told us he believes the district's mission is to come together as a district and continue to move forward, as there are a lot of very worthy goals to achieve. Dr. Short also spoke about the Chromebook rollout. We thought that was an important thing to hear about in the first meeting because of so many middle school parents being there. And he also spoke about other technological issues and opportunities in the district. The main concerns were that there were Google Sync issues at that time with the Chromebooks, which he assured us was being addressed. The need for students to be able to type. And then Soretta Ralph did advise us that the elementary level schools have keyboarding programs that are available to the students to use in the classroom. And then there were some ParentLink issues at that time because Focus was not interfacing with ParentLink, and parents were very upset that they couldn't see their their students' grades, but that has since been fixed because they've given parents access to Focus. And then breakout concerns in that meeting were elementary was concerned that homework is required but not graded, and was wondering when the test results would be available from last year. And then the middle school issues were the use of earbuds with the Chromebooks and how that would affect hearing, and problems with the district school communication through ParentLink due to incorrect information being entered into the mainframe. High school was concerned about the role of counselors at the high school level and the absence of the DAC representatives on the calendar committee. October 15th, we selected DAC members to be on the Transportation Hardship Review Committee. Mr. Morris spoke about the changes to the student assignment plan for this coming year. The way he laid it out is the changes are minimal, but the table of contents or the glossary or whatever is going to be changed so it's easier for parents to find what they're looking for in the plan, as the plan is quite lengthy. And then we selected DAC members to be on the site selection committee for Triple L. Mr. Sarah spoke via Skype about the 2016 legislative priorities. He was up in Tallahassee. And the main concern we got from that was that the possibility of the district no longer funding the dual enrollment program. And then in the breakout groups we selected, they were instructed to write questions for the community meeting, which is this coming Monday with the legislators.
Thank you very much. Board members, questions?
Thank you, that was very comprehensive.
Okay, it was, good. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Nicely done.
Equity and Diversity Advisory Committee, Joe Ryder. I know I saw it, there he is. Okay.
Good afternoon, board members, superintendent, Mr. Martin. I think it's important that you all understand that the chairman of your Equity and Diversity Advisory Committee is of sound mind and body. This morning, as I do every morning, I got up at 5:30, and on Tuesday and Thursday I swim. So I got on my bike with my trunks and I headed off to the pool. And I got to McGregor and I noticed that I looked south, no cars, and I looked north, no cars, and it was real still. So of sound mind, I turned around and went back to my house and went in and saw it was 3:45 instead of 5:45. So anyway, I'm not of sound eyes. That's what the problem is. But anyway, EDAC has had 2 meetings so far, and we meet on the second Thursday of each month at 6 p.m. We met Thursday, September the 10th, and Thursday, October the 8th. And along with you all and Superintendent and Mr. Martin, Mark Mora is Director of Planning, Growth, and School Capacity, and without him, we really couldn't operate. He gets all the data to us, through Mr. Itzen, or Dr. Itzen and all, so he really does a great job for us. And he also prepares the notes and the minutes and stuff. So our topics this year, along with the election which we had, I was elected chairman because nobody else ran, and Dr. Guido Manai is vice chairman. We also welcome 6 new committee members that you all appointed, and Mr. Torber is our representative. And of course, Mark is the school district liaison to us. So some of the things we want to just look at this year through your preview and through the superintendent's preview is, of course, we invite the public. They can come. It's an advertised meeting, as you know, so they can come. But we're looking at review of the district senior graduation count by school. We noticed possibly some deficiencies or some things that didn't seem to add up to us that maybe we could help you all with some suggestions. And we also looked at the proposed plan for student assignment, and I happen to be on that committee also with Layla Mubdi, and so I know a little bit about that, but I know that there's going to be a review of that, and you all are looking at that, so hopefully we can have some input for you. And the review input of 3-year strategic plan for student assignment. And then the other big area was the just an analysis Mark has provided of the district's underselected, hard-to-staff schools, which I know you're aware of, but if we can give you some input about that, we would also. So on the report I gave you, as you well know, there are some, well, I won't say disturbing, but at least some, to me, some figures that jumped out about graduation. And I know that if people don't know, that doesn't all have to do with the district, it has to do with the state. Because the state's the one that has put in some of these regulations that you all are bound, we're all bound by. So we just need to work, you know, if we can help you to work on that, we certainly will. And then the student plan assignment, if people should really get to know it a little more, I know that people are coming in that are going through this for the first time probably don't know. So if there's going to be, you know, additional information out to them, I know you put it out, but some way or other, you know, they're complaining that they don't understand. Well, they don't understand maybe, well, I don't know why they don't understand. And then the other area, the selected hard-to-staff schools and stuff, we're going to invite a principal and some students and teachers from maybe some of these schools, not to chastise, but just to find out what their thoughts are and what they're thinking. And if we can offer any suggestions to them through you all, we'll be happy to. So that's our guidelines right now that we're starting out with. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Except for the alarm clock, I shut it off. I just couldn't see the numbers. I thought I shut it off. Obviously, it was a mistake.
Okay, board members, any questions, comments? No, thank you, but it sounds like you have a good plan. Thank you. And Mr. William Scott, Chair of Finance Advisory. There he is.
Good afternoon, board members and Council Martin. I'm going to need these glasses. He's got some seeing problems. I need them too. We've had one meeting since we got started this year, and at that meeting, I was elected chairman of the committee, and Carrie Perrone was elected as vice chair. For me, I'm entering my third year with the committee that we're the financial advisory committee, and it's been a challenging 3 years, the last 3 years working with that. But the group got together successfully, and we've come up kind of with a mission here. I just want to kind of read it to you. The committee desires to make the 2015-2016 year as productive as possible. During the last sessions, there were many ideas that were brought up, but there was clearly not enough time to vet these ideas thoroughly. To that end, we strive to be more efficient and more effective during this current assignment. A couple of housekeeping things. I was brought to our attention today that we had a member resign. I think it is Joan Schaefer, but today we made a replacement with David Ehrman, and we are now at full capacity at 15, so we're fully represented at this point. The group spent a lot of time. We actually had about a 2.5-hour, 3-hour meeting. Overall, I think that the veteran members that were there prior expressed their views about the productivity of the committee over the prior years, and we'd like to do better. To that end, the group that we have appointed this year, I think, is a wonderful group. They're diverse, and I think they're immensely qualified to give advice, and more important than that, they're willing to give their time. They all have home lives and could be doing something else, but they volunteer their time to work with the school system. Further, to be more effective and efficient, what we have done is this. We have divided the committee into subcommittees, 3 groups we think kind of encapsulate the mission that we want to achieve. The subcommittees consist of cost reduction, and we've appointed a chair who's Carrie Perrone for that. There are 5 people in each. The second is regulatory changes or efficiencies, and George Fox is the chair of that. And revenue generation, and Paul Cohen is the chair of that. The idea here being that what we're getting together to do is at the next meeting, we are going to choose a number of categories, subjects in each one of these categories. Pick 2 per quarter, and every quarter vet those fully, and then bring those suggestions to you. To be honest, last year, like I said, there wasn't enough time to get this done. These 15 individuals have also volunteered to increase their time to vet these activities. So we brought in yet another meeting in between the meetings we have scheduled. So we're now meeting every other week, with the alternate meeting being a workshop, so that these committees can fully vet, come up with the ideas necessary, and by the end of a quarter come up with a solid foundation of a suggestion that may be beneficial to the board. So effectively, we have tripled the, on paper at least, the efficiency of what we believe of the board, and I think we can come up with a better product at the end of the day. We are quite excited also. We worked with Bill Tubbs and Barb the last few years, and we're quite anxious to get started with Bill again. And we're very excited to have our new appointment and permanent appointment from the board as a liaison. Our next meeting is on the 18th, and with that I'll end. Any questions or comments?
I just wanted to say, Mr. Scott, you talked about the volunteering and giving of time, and it is really critical to us to have that, and for people to be willing to share their time and talents with us to help us make important decisions is absolutely immeasurable. So thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much, too.
Kudos to the group for being willing to do that. I know it was to share along with you. It was exciting to see the Curriculum Advisory Committee wanting to do research before. And so we just really appreciate. And this is awesome. I'm excited to and anxious to hear what you bring forward.
Hopefully we won't let you down.
Well, and I will add, I'm very excited too by what you're proposing. I think this is a great step for Finance Advisory, and I appreciate your leadership of the committee. Thank you, and good luck. We look forward to hearing from you guys.
I appreciate the nomination, and I appreciate the honor to serve. Thank you.
And I will echo what Mrs. Fisher said. It's these committees, the presentations this year have been good. First of all, they came before we have our board organization meeting, so we'll have an opportunity to talk a little bit about what you have on your plate. And there's been some great suggestions about work that you think you can do for us, which is really important. I think one of the things that we've learned over the past couple of years is that we're not getting enough input from the communities before we're making critical decisions. And so the role that the various committees play is really important to us. And so we do appreciate the time and effort put in by members of the community. Up next, Dr. Atkins, Executive Services. Turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, board members. And as Mr. McCullers and Mark Moore are making their way up to to do their presentations, I just want to echo some of the things that you just mentioned. I met with our chairs of our board advisory committees last week, and I will have to tell you that, as you heard today, they are full of some really great ideas in terms of ways that we can improve our processes, some of the things they can do for us in the community, and they're interested, engaged, and I'm really looking forward to working with them during this upcoming year. Now, having said that, just as we transition, the two topics, we've brought these two topics to you previously. The first one is Mr. McCullers. He's going to address Policy 9.10, school names, and not to be confused, but kind of a sister or brother policy, 9.11, naming rights for school district facilities. Mr. Moore will take that one. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. McCullers.
For your time. There we go. Thank you for having me back. We have the full briefing here available for the school names policy 9.10. We had favorable notes from the board when we pre-briefed this. The only change, therefore, is around lines 101, 102 in the technical section. We had a sentence there about keeping names below a certain length, and we decided to add a clause to make it clear that that was just for special purposes. We have a lot of school names that need to be abbreviated. We have a lot of reports that we use that we need short versions of names for, and so we abbreviate, like elementary, which is a long word, down to EL or ELEM. We just use that for technical purposes. It's not for anything official, it's just for internal use. So we wanted to put that change in there to make that clear. That's the only change we have, and I'm open to any other questions or any other information you need about the proposal.
Mrs. Dozier.
I did have one question, and I don't know if it is actually addressed here, but maybe you can help me with this. Over on line 104, distinctiveness, when it talks about the school names and how you should stay away from other schools that are using that name. Well, I have a question about that. Let's say that we want to build a school out in the east and call it East Lee County High School, but then in the same proximity area, we're going to put a middle school and an elementary school. Would there be any prohibition from having that same name, but with East Lee County Middle School, East Lee County Elementary School?
Well, there was some thought given to that, and in the language that we have so far, we allow exceptions for schools on the same campus, schools on adjacent properties, or schools that are part of permanent feeder patterns. And that may be what you're describing there as a middle to a high school feeder pattern. That would make sense. The way that, way back, Fort Myers Middle fed Fort Myers High.
Right.
That was envisioned. It made sense that might happen, and that was what this language was supposed to encompass.
Okay, all right. All right.
Any other questions about this policy? No?
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Right.
Dr. McCullers.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, board members, Dr. Atkins, Mr. Martin. My name is Mark Moore. I'm the planning director. I'm here to update you on the proposed policy 9.11, which is the naming rights for school district facilities. You probably recall that we pre-briefed this on October 6, 2015. And at that time, we collected feedback from the board members. And I want to come back this afternoon to present some updates based on your feedback. There were a few concerns. The first one was the policy itself might put too much onus and work on the superintendent, because in the original policy, it was designated to be his authority or her authority. We've since updated the policy to include a designee, and you can find that on line 19 and line 199 of the copy that you're provided. Primarily right now, the responsibility, if this is approved, would be on the planning department until further development. There was some talk in the last briefing of establishing an entity or department within our district to oversee this, almost as an income generating type of position. So until that is decided, it would fall in the hands of the superintendent or the designee, which right now would probably be the planning department. Concern number 2 was the naming rights opportunity would not be available for non-school facilities. As written as a proposal, it did not include non-school facilities. To address that, we've included the addition of ancillary facilities, and you'll find that on lines 66 through 67 and on line 146. So buildings such as the one that we're in this afternoon could be named under this policy. In our previous briefing, it wasn't included. There was also a concern with the duration of naming rights, particularly for ones of long terms. The original policy called for 5-year increments. We've updated the policy, the proposed policy, to include on lines 207, 211, duration shall be negotiated on a case-by-case basis, but still reviewed and renewed every 5 years. So you could potentially buy the naming rights for a facility for more than 5 years. However, that particular case would be reviewed every 5 years and renewed at that time. The last time we pre-briefed this, we also did not have a statutory authority cited for the policy, and we've added that as well. It's 1001.43, Section 4 of Florida statutes. You also find there's a few other updates. They're not based on the feedback we got, but we thought they were good updates to make. If you look on lines 135 to 136, we've expanded the items that would not be considered for naming rights, as well as lines 142 to 143, we added the restriction of granting rights to religious organizations. There was a few other language issues that we've cleaned up as well in the policy. So I'd like to open up to questions or responses or feedback.
Comments, questions, board members?
Thank you.
It's very thorough.
Well, I have one. I'm sorry, I may not have gone through the first briefing fully attentive or whatever, but line 185, distribution of generated naming rights revenue. All net compensation received by the district pursuant to this policy shall be distributed as followed: 50% to the school where such naming rights are granted, and 50% to the district's general fund. What is the rationale for 50% going to the general fund?
And that's a great question, and the research that we've done in the 4 other districts that have a similar policy, it was quite different. There were some that the school received 100% of it. There was also a 60-40 split, and I believe there's one other that had a 50-50. The general idea here is that the maintenance of any facility that's named by a school would be performed by the district, the general fund from the district. So putting the 50% back will enable the district to maintain that facility for the facility that's being named in this particular case, or any particular case.
I'm sorry. So we name an auditorium, and the donor is expected to the donor is expected to give money to the district for maintenance of that auditorium. Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't. The idea is that that building has to be maintained like any other building that we have in the district, that money going into the fund would help the district not just maintain that building, but all of our buildings. So it's a benefit to the district as well as the school.
Okay, well then as a board member, I have to take exception to that, because I think you're going to have a real tough problem telling donors that they're going to give money and only 50% of it's going to go towards the building itself. I think most donors are going to look for 100% of their money invested in the particular project, and the district needs the facilities anyway. We'd have to maintain them anyway. I think you're going to have I think you're going to turn donors off with that provision. So that would be my comment. Oh, I see 3 fingers. I'll start with Mrs. Fisher.
Well, I have a question. Don't we already have a budget for maintenance of facilities?
Yes, we do. I
Okay.
think this is one way to support that budget and maintain the buildings at the high quality that we want them to be.
So then that would help us with our capital.
Absolutely. And I think this actual policy is looking at the strategic plan and looking at ways to generate the additional revenue that we need to maintain our facilities at the level that we'd like for them all to be.
If I could just interject too, I think that I don't want to get hung up on simply maintenance of a facility. When you're putting district use in there, as I'm interpreting it, it allows us as a district to utilize those funds as really we see fit. So if it's if it's doing something for students, if it's doing something to forward the objectives of the strategic plan, but it's not earmarked for the maintenance of that facility, but it's earmarked for the general fund.
Mrs. Dozier, you had your hand up.
Yes. Actually, with your question, I had a couple of comments. When we were having the conversation around this issue, I think part of the rationale and the reasoning, if I'm not mistaken, or if my brain doesn't recollect properly, but we talked about that in the future there may be the necessity to have a staff member that actually is going out and marketing this idea, so to speak. I actually had the opportunity to go to a component to hear about this at FSBA, and in one of the districts, they actually have a staff member that is devoted to that. And so that fee, part of that offsets that, and that was the rationale for them putting money into, to the district as well as other things. And I do see this as a potential way for us to raise revenues. And of course, I think everybody's plate is full as it is now. However, if we want to really go after this, we're going to have somebody dedicated to this project. And because schools don't have the opportunity to do that as well. So, 50-50, 60-40, I don't know that. I don't know about the split, how I feel about the 50-50, but because I think initially, didn't we talk 60-40?
Yes, ma'am, that was one of the proposals we had.
Yeah.
That's one of the, we researched 4 policies, and that was one of the policies we had.
60 for the school and 40
for
the
the
district. Yeah.
fund,
And if
the
we're
capital
talking
fund.
about multiples, I like the 60-40 better than I like the 50-50. It seems like we're taking advantage of a facility that's already built, so I would be more inclined to go with the 60-40 than the 50-50.
Mrs. LaRiviere.
And it's a policy that we can revisit as time goes on. But I'm thinking when we're looking at this, we are looking in basically at facilities that are already in existence. And someone is paying for the naming rights for, we'll say, LEPEC. And the building is here, so they're not paying for the construction, but they are paying to have their name be the advertising part. And some of the money then, some money would be split. Of course, that's not a split thing. So if you do a school auditorium, the auditorium is already there, but it's going to be the Mark Moore Auditorium because he's paying a certain amount to have his name on there or the name of his business. Money goes to the school for that naming right, but then also for the maintenance. It comes to another component when you're looking at someone, which I'm thinking of as thought of too, if someone is going to say, I'm going to build this auditorium and I will provide all the funding for this auditorium. That becomes a different scenario. If somebody says, I've got $1 million to put up front and I'm going to build this auditorium, or $2 million, or however much it costs, I'm willing to fund it, then in that scenario, 100% should go to in that case. So maybe we need to have a tweaking in there based on the scenario.
And Mr. Moore, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the case that you describe, the district's portion and the school portion would be combined so that you'd have 100% that would move toward the construction of a facility. In where you have an opportunity where you have an existing facility, then you would have 50% that would go toward, let's say, the upgrade of that facility or toward the school, and then the other 50% would be for the district to use as it saw fit, and many times in alignment with that particular project. So it would be a partnership between the school, the existing school, and the district in terms of how those funds would be allocated.
Go ahead.
Because that's another thought that just came to me as you spoke, because then the district would be making the decision about some of those parts, and the money that's just school money, that would be all the decisions made by the school itself, correct?
Well, let's give an example. Let's say, for example, that we have a person who comes forward and they want to upgrade a particular facility, let's say a track. Okay, so if you, a rubberized track costs quite a bit of money, and so depending on how much money is being allocated for that particular purpose and the cost of that, we would depend on how much the person is willing to donate and what portion of that covers the cost of that construction. So let's say, for example, it's going to require 80% of a donation to actually cover that renovation. I think that would be the combination of literally the school portion, which is going to the upgrade of that school facility, and then you'd have to take a major chunk of the district's portion of that to also be a part of the upgrade of that facility. So 80% of that would, some from district, and then all of the school portion would upgrade the track. Then you'd have 20% that would be district discretion, which could be used for the maintenance of that track or could be used for some other capital or operating expenditure.
Okay, well, I'm going to weigh in again. I still think that we're thinking about it from the district point of view and how we're trying to generate revenue, and I get that. But I think that we also have to look at it from a donor point of view. And I really think when you're asking somebody to put up $25,000, $50,000, $100,000, and you're telling them that half of that's going to be diverted to something else when they're a graduate of Fort Myers High and they want to do this for Fort Myers High, or it's the new high school in Bonita and they want to have their name on the library in Bonita, they're not going to want to hear that 50% of that money is going back into the general fund. They want it in that school. So I think we need to rethink this particular piece of the policy. At least that would be my druthers, would be to rethink this particular piece of the policy and bring it back. But board members?
Well, I can go with 60/40, because I do know that it's common practice among the boards around the state that actually have a policy in place where that a percentage does come back to the district for various purposes. I mean, I can go with 60/40, we can go with 70/30. We could set the amount right now. This is the opportunity for us to do that. I do see rationale for having a percentage come to the district. So, I would certainly go along with something, because that's just the way life is, especially if we're going to put somebody in place that's going to be out there marketing all of this. That's going to help, pay for that salary for that purpose.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes, so do we have a specific price list then for auditoriums, theaters, libraries? I did not see that addressed in this policy, but
We do have some baseline prices for some common things that you might be able to name. It was a range. It's very hard to establish it without doing a real good market search and what those naming rights would be evaluated at, and it's all dependent on location, high traffic areas. One of the suggestions we would make is to have either a marketing company or a firm that specializes in that to come and look at our properties and the available opportunities and what those ranges might be. We basically based our baselines on things that were named here in the state of Florida, and there are a few instances with stadiums and some auditoriums, and we've also used some instances that occurred outside of Florida. So our baseline is not a professional assessment of what the valuation would be. I think we should leave that to the professionals, but it's just a range based on our research. And obviously that would have to be negotiated on a site-by-site basis. In the last briefing, we talked about naming rights on a school like Cape Coral High School might be vastly different from what it is at East Lee County High because of the traffic that those schools see. So I think there's an assessment that needs to be made individually.
yes, now, in looking at the other districts in Florida and out of Florida who have such a policy and a practice, what's the potential for generating revenue in this district, based on our size?
That's a great question. The other districts that have a policy such as the one we're proposing are larger districts. There are bigger urban districts. Orange is one of them, Broward, Palm Beach. Those are the ones that come to mind. Obviously, larger counties with a lot more traffic, so the potential is really good there. I think we're very similar. We're not as big as them, but I think we have high schools that are positioned in close proximity to where people live and where they work. There's one case in Orange County where Nemours is actually, Lake Nona High School has the Nemours Children Clinic. It's $100,000 per year, $100,000 for a 5-year period. However, that school is located off of I-4, which gets a lot of traffic. So the potential is here. I think we've had a lot of people have already come forward. There's been some that just want to do it honorarily, so there's nothing coming into the district as far as money is concerned. But we do have quite a few organizations. We saw some success with the Golisano Hospital, had quite a few donors there. I think we have folks in our community, in our county, that are poised to do something like this, a way to benevolently help the district and at the same time capitalize on some of the opportunities we have in some of our schools.
Mrs. LaRiviere.
I'm along the same lines with Mrs. Dozier, that I could go along with a 60-40 or a 70-30. We probably do need to seriously consider some compromise on that. And I also agree to, right now is a good time to kind of make that decision.
Okay, well, my druthers would be to take this particular section out, go ahead and pass the policy, and then come back and amend the policy. That would be my druthers after the district has really done some thinking about how we want to do the revenue piece. But,
Okay.
Mrs. Dozier.
I would remind all of us that to put a policy in place and then to go back and make any changes to the policy, we're going to have a supermajority, as well as it takes how long, 6 weeks to basically put something in place?
At least 6 months, 6 weeks, yeah, 6 to 8 weeks. That time
6
frame.
months.
6 to 8 weeks, excuse me.
Okay, so,
I will just say personally not comfortable with going with any kind of split now without having more information. So, but that's one person's opinion, so.
Would the board be open to thinking about placing in the policy the ability for that to be negotiated on a case-by-case basis?
Sure.
yes.
And maybe amending the policy to read as such?
Yeah.
Yes,
And give us the flexibility and the board the flexibility to determine
I think
the
that,
split?
that
I would
makes
agree with
sense.
that.
I see 3. Mrs. Dozier?
That's fine.
Okay. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Any other comments or questions on this particular policy? No? Thank you very much.
As
What's
we,
next? Oh, plan for student assignment.
Thank you. As we transition to our plan for student assignment, just want to say that I want to thank the Student Assignment Committee, task force that really went to work on this. I think what you're going to see this year is really some cleanup to the actual plan itself. We were really talking about some pretty innovative ideas at the table that we'll find in subsequent years. It'll come to this table for consideration. But Mr. Mora kept bringing our committee back to the plan itself and the importance of making sure that we have a very clear plan that is understandable by all. And once we get that in place, then we will be able to make some really strong recommendations. I think what my plan is this year is to really go to work on the school staffing portion of the plan in preparation for making some stronger changes to our plan in year 2. So this year the focus will be on leadership and staff. The following year was going to be more on the actual student assignment plan itself, and I think some changes, pretty bold changes that are going to make a difference in terms of having some high-quality choices very close to where students live, which will improve our operational efficiency and I think student achievement overall in the district. So you're not going to see huge things this year. Just know that the plan is for that year 2 where you'll see more of those innovative things. So, Mr. Mora.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. I appreciate the prelude into the presentation. Again, Mark Mora, the Director of Planning, Growth, and School Capacity. I'm presenting this on behalf of the superintendent, as well as Ms. Layla Mubdi, who is unable to be here today. As Dr. Atkins suggested, we do have a task force that continually, I don't use the word annually, but continually looks at the student assignment plan and looks for ways to make it better. Better for all of our stakeholders, better for our students, and better for the district. Their work is guided by 4 essential goals. The essential goals are to improve student achievement, to ensure educational equity, to promote the educational benefits of diversity, and lastly, to manage growth effectively, as we are a very fast-growing community. The purpose of the task force is not just to review the plan, but to look at all of the goals and how they're interrelated and come up with the most effective and efficient way that we can implement a plan that assigns students to schools. And from that, they make an annual recommendation to the board, as we're doing today, to improve the success of the plan. Just to give you an idea of the timeline that we've worked on, as I say, it's an ongoing process, but we do bring it to EDAC for community input, as well as the DAC committee. We've done that on October 8th and October 21st, and we're briefing it today, and it'll be brought forward on November 17th for board approval. The recommendations, as Dr. Atkins suggested, was basically to look at the plan itself from feedback from customers and from student assignment, to look at making it a bit more user-friendly, improve the readability and the usability. It's a quite lengthy document. It has evolved over the many years that we've had this particular process, and it was a time that we need to look at it and make sure its intentions were still true, that a user could pick it up and understand how we assign students. So that was the focus this year, is to make sure that we clean up the plan and make it user-friendly so we can make way for some of the changes that we're planning. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about a 3-year strategic plan for student assignment. So I'll save that piece for later. If you've looked at our student assignment plan, which is posted out on the web on the student assignment webpage, and open the plan and look at the current plan format, and I wanted to use the table of contents for an example, you can just see when you open this up, the first thing that you're confronted with was an introduction, but it wasn't an introduction to the process, it was an introduction to the history of how we do assignment, which is a very important lesson, but not for the everyday user, the customer, the family, the parent. And then we gave an overview of the new components of the plan for student assignment. Now, the most important thing to me as a parent enrolling a kid in the school system is, how do I go about this? How do I register? What are my options? And if you look through the current table of contents, that doesn't start till part number 8, Roman numeral 8 on page 26. And a lot of people just don't get there. So it's at the back of the plan. So we thought that odd, that needs to be in the front. And as you look at the table of contents, some of the things that are most important aspects of enrolling a kid in student assignment aren't on the table of contents. They're not called out. They're inside of a lot of words, and we need to pull those out so parents know exactly what our process looks like. So we have a proposed reformatting of the plan. I'm just using the table of contents as an example. The actual reformatting of it comes in the meat of the plan itself. We've moved a lot of the stuff around. As Dr. Axon says, the substance of the plan hasn't changed, but the way we've formatted it has. So when you see this proposed reformatting, this table of contents, red indicates material in the plan that's been moved to a more appropriate section, if you will. The green is things that are in the plan but weren't noted on the table of contents. And they weren't noted in the plan either. Again, they were in paragraph form. There was no header. So we wanted to pull that important information out so parents could see it. We had a lot of questions in student assignment about the process. And if they could read it in the document themselves, they're better informed to make the decision. Such an important decision to enroll your kid and take part in choice. We thought it was important to restructure the plan as well. So, you know, our plan is so dependent on the choice zones and subzones. We thought that would be something that you'd want to put up front in the plan, because it actually helps determine which schools you can select from. Where you live, in what subzone, in what zone, determines what schools you rank. So we put that first and foremost. The next thing, once you know what schools you can rank or choose from, it's important to know what those schools and programs look like. So we put that as a third part of the plan. A little bit about the magnets that we have currently, some of the special programs, how the programs are developed, and the distribution of the schools, the programs amongst the schools. Once parents know what zone they're in, what schools are available to them, they need to learn, how do I enroll the student and how do I go through the process. So Roman numeral 4, we moved the student assignment process. Again, the green is stuff that's in the plan but we didn't call out. You know, the application process itself kicks off the student assignment process. So we pulled that out as a header on the document as well as something on the table of contents. And grandfathering, which is another key concept of our plan that was kind of embedded there and no one really understood or knew where it was. So grandfathering, basically, as you all know, is once you're assigned to a school, you stay in that school to the highest grade. We added to this section as well. We talked about rolling enrollment because there's a lot of verbiage inside the plan talking about the lottery, the batch one process, as we call it, behind the scenes. But nothing really about the rolling enrollment. What happens when a family moves to the district in July? What does that process look like? A little bit different than the lottery. Very similar process, but unique in its own right. And the last thing we added in this section was where the student assignment offices were located. We have 3 of them. We have a lot of people that travel to the central office thinking this is the only place they can enroll a student. But for customer quality and service, we have an office in each zone. Also the hours, as well as contact information. We just want to make it a little bit more user-friendly. That information's out on the web too, but we also understand that some people use the web, but they also use documents and guides. This is the plan. This is the document that explains the process. We thought it important to put that information. We moved changing schools up to 5, and changing schools is basically transferring or attending a different school, and there's many different ways that can occur, and our plan actually guides customers through that. The eligibility pools, as you understand, is the first 15 days of school. If you're not assigned to your first choice location, you do have the opportunity over the summer and through the first 15 days of school to gain enrollment in that school if a seat does open up. We want to call out transfers because if you recall, we made a key change in transfers last year for the high schoolers, and we thought pulling that out would make that a little bit more apparent to folks. Waivers is something that wasn't highlighted at all. There are different types of waivers. We know that the more well-informed parent understands those options and others might not. So pulling those out so that everybody had noticed that we have a waiver system and they can avail themselves to it, we thought was important. You'll see that we moved to the back. We thought the history is very important. The history of student assignment in Lee County is actually fascinating. It's a very unique system. I'm very proud of what we do and what it's allowed us to accomplish. And we retained that in the plan. However, we put it back in the back of the plan, more like an appendix type of reference. We actually included a table because, again, all of this is in paragraph form. We actually put a table in there. I believe Mr. Martin might have actually created it some time ago, but we've added to it that explains year after year what things have changed in the plan, so parents understand that we are continually looking at it and the things that we're doing to enhance how we assign students. And in that section, we also include the plan development. Key plan components, we moved to number 8. It's a very important thing, but again, it's the meat and potatoes of the assignment process, not actually the stuff that parents were probably mostly interested in. Plan goals, student achievement, equity and diversity and growth. We had a plan goals section, but we didn't call out which those 4 goals were, so they're clearly headed now inside the plan, and you can see what our goals are in the plan. The rest of the information is basically the same material before. It's just been moved around: marketing program placement, falsification of information, and annual report to the board. So again, this is how the index is displaying how we've moved things around. The actual formatting in the plan mirrors this or mimics it. So if you look through it, you'll see that things have been moved around. The appendix, annually we update the subzone maps as well as the groupings of schools. Any questions before I move on to the 3-year strategic plan on how we reformatted the plan? We hope to get some positive feedback from parents when they start using it. And again, something that we think if we can clean up and make more user-friendly, some of the changes that we're contemplating or are going to bring forth will be much better understood if we had a vehicle such as a plan that explained it well to the community.
No comments, questions? Okay.
Okay, we'll roll right into the 3-year strategic plan. Which I'm very excited about because I think there's many things we can do to improve the way that we assign students that'll make us become more efficient and effective in the way we do things, and also promote quality that we want in all of our schools. So the purpose of the 3-year strategic plan, and I want to tell you it's aligned with the district strategic plan. Everything that we looked at here was in a way that we align with everything that we're doing, is to provide for the assignment of elementary students to schools in the closest proximity to their homes while ensuring equitable access to quality academic programming in the most desired school services. And when you take a look at the way we assign students now, and we talked about the process, if a parent walks into the East Zone, Subzone 2, student assignment office and has an application in front of them, they have up to 17 schools to choose from. As the subzones are set up, anybody who lives in the middle subzone can select any school in the zone, which that's just an overwhelming amount of schools for a parent to choose from, let alone we suggest they do research and make sure they find the best fit. It just doesn't make sense. And it also, when you look at transportation, there's an impact there. We can transport kids to one of 17 schools from a single residence in a zone, which is not an effective way to transport kids or an efficient way to do it. Again, I mentioned alignment. This is aligning with focus area number 7, allocate resources strategically. In our 3-year strategic plan, there are 4 key objectives, and you'll find that they're common to a lot of things that we do in the district: equity, efficiency, talent, engagement, and collaboration. Those are the 4 key objectives that are in the strategic plan for student assignment. I want to go into each one of them and give a little detail. And again, these are in development. We are working in a committee to develop this strategic plan. Equity, we want to standardize the academic program and services at elementary schools district-wide. We want all of the schools to have the same quality programming, no matter where it's located, and have a standard academic program. We want to standardize school policies at elementary schools district-wide so that we have a uniform way that schools do things. And this is key when you have that parent sitting in front of that application determining what school they go to, because right now there are some differences between elementary schools that drive that decision. We want to also provide families with an equitable number of schools to choose from. I mentioned the folks that live in E2 have 17 choices. Well, if you live in subzone E1, you only have 10. So where's the equity in that? And we also want to ensure diverse enrollments are maintained at all schools. Part of the plan is monitoring and looking at diversity in all of our schools, and that's one thing we do not want to lose. We celebrate the diversity, the strength in diversity. So that's something that's a very key thing as far as an initiative is concerned. We want to provide equitable access to quality programs and services desired by families in elementary schools closest to the elementary student's home. Right now, the best fit, the best match, the best service that you want for your child might not be located in the schools in the closest proximity to your home. So that forces parents to choose a school that's further from home. Well, let's make sure those services are available in the close school as well, the proximity school. And lastly, we want to make sure that we maintain and update our facilities equitably so that they're all capable of supporting standard academic programming and school services. So that's continually looking at our facilities and updating them and making sure they can do the things and the programs that we want them to do. Efficiency. And this is basically looking at the way that we assign students. When you start looking at that zone map and the different choices that students have or parents have, we want to develop a school assignment zone that keeps students at elementary schools that are closer to their home. It just makes sense. We have a lot of instances where we're sending kids 20, 25 miles from home, and that just does not make any sense. That's not good for families, and that's not good for community. We want to develop student assignment mechanisms that prioritize assignment of elementary students to proximity schools. If you understand our process right now, we do have some weights: proximity preference 1 and 2, sibling preference. Those are all things that are at play in the student assignment lottery. We want those mechanisms in place still, but in a way that they encourage student enrollment in the closest school. And lastly, to maximize the utilization of elementary school capacity district-wide. That's a strategic goal. We have resources that are available to us, and it is our responsibility to utilize them equitably. Talent, which goes a long way at school choice, because a lot of times when parents make a selection of a school, they're actually looking at what type of leadership does that school have? What type of quality teaching goes on in that school? So we understand that talent is a big part of school choice. And this aligns with human resources plan for recruitment as well. So we talk about alignment. There is alignment here. We look to develop recruitment plans that attract and incentivize the most talented staff and teachers and administrators to work in the most underperforming, underselected elementary schools. We do track on an annual basis selectivity of each school. And there are some schools that are over-selected, more kids than we have seats select that school, and we have others that don't have that issue. So what we want to see is that all schools are selected equitably. We also want to recognize and reward performance in the most underperforming, underselected elementary schools. It's very hard to attract talent at those underperforming schools. And when they do, it's often hard to retain them. More often than not, our new teachers will cut their teeth in an underperforming school, and as soon as an opening happens in a more well-established, high-performing school, they'll transfer. So we want those incentives to stay there where they're most needed. In developing support and ongoing professional development for our teachers, particularly in those schools that have challenges. Lastly is collaboration and engagement, and this is key, especially when it comes to student assignment. We want to engage the parent and community participation, particularly in the most underperforming, underselected elementary schools. There's reasons why those schools are underselected or underperforming. And when we engage the community and parents in that discussion, we'll hopefully unveil what the issues are and ways that we can address that. We also know that it's going to take investment from the entire community, including businesses and organizations, to improve those schools. We also want to develop mechanisms that collect feedback annually from stakeholders regarding elementary school assignment. We don't want to put a policy in effect, but never actually, as Dr. Atkins will say, inspect what we expect. So this is something that we need to develop, a way to get feedback on how this process is working. And lastly, provide ongoing opportunities for stakeholder input regarding elementary school assignment. As I mentioned, this is all in development still, and there's quite a few steps still ahead of us. Obviously, we're at the point where we're developing a project plan and timeline. We're collecting baseline data. We're developing some key performance indicators for each of those initiatives that we went through, as well as establishing target measures and goals.
Just before you go on, just a couple of things just to kind of flesh that out in terms of some of the recommendations that he is making here. One example that we found is that we look at elementary school to elementary school offerings such as what's a before school program, after school program, school by school. And so parents are making selections based on the fact that this particular school has a before school program and after school program, this school does not. So it would be more equitable for them all to have that type of program, so you kind of eliminate that as a factor in the school choice process. So those are some of the things that we're talking about doing. The other thing you've heard us talk about, the career ladder. We feel that this is an integral part. We integrate what we're doing with the career ladder with the student assignment process, which I think will help us really drive great leadership and great teachers to some of our underperforming schools, and they will become, I've been a part of an underselected, underperforming school, and we walked away from it, over-selected waiting list, one of the top performing schools in the district, and that just takes teachers, great teachers, and a leadership team, and also engaged community, which is another thing that was a key component. Finally, I just want to say that we are bringing different voices to the table. We never, and this was a part of that transportation audit that was a positive that came out of it, which is they talked to our routers and they said, transportation folks need to have more of a say in the student assignment process. Our routers in particular had some great ideas, and so now they actually sit on this committee and help us with those recommendations. So just a couple of things I wanted to mention.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins, and we'll open up to questions and feedback from the board.
No questions? Oh, Mrs. Dozier.
Not really a question, but a comment. One of the things that makes this plan work is the fact that it's just like a strategic plan. It's continually changing. And, sometimes the best information comes from those that are closest to dealing with it every day. And the fact that you've got those routers on board with the committee, I think that's outstanding, because they know what works and what doesn't work. So thank you for adding that to this.
Mrs. LaRiviere.
And I just want to say that I tried to pretend that I was a parent reading through the booklet. And it is well organized, and it's easy to catch the pieces that you're looking for. So you really were very thoughtful as a team to develop something that was user-friendly. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to say the rewrite is a great product. I think that'll go a long way to helping with some of the beginning of the school year conversations that we end up trying to field in the board office. I'm also really excited by the strategic plan process, because I think that as we have grown so rapidly, we have really not sat down to look at the impact on the student choice plan. And so I think this is a good time to step back and really look at, now we're a big district, and how are we going to do this plan? So, thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
excited.
Okay, thank you. I do want to just point out, I appreciate Mark and his leadership
Yes.
with putting together this task force and moving them forward. Also want to recognize Robert Cody has kind of joined us with giving recommendations, so forth, from a transportation perspective. So
Okay.
he has been a big help.
Thanks.
As Dr. Itzen prepares to start talking about the code of conduct, this is something in the months ahead that I want to have a conversation about. We had a really good one as it relates to cabinet last week, something that will continue in terms of in subsequent months bringing forward some recommendations that I think will make some improvements to this particular code of conduct. The ones he's talking about right now are relatively minor, but we've got some things in the kind of in the hopper for later that I think will make a big difference. Anyway, Dr. Itzen.
Okay, good afternoon. Normally for a code of conduct item, you would see Dr. Bohatch here, but I'm here today because it has to do with the testing schedule. As you recall, in September, the board approved the current year testing schedule, as is statutorily required. We have published that schedule, and we notified the Department of Education prior to the October 1st deadline. I'm only here today really to alert you to the fact that the next step, which is statutorily required as well, is to add the testing schedule to the parent guide. As you know, the parent guide is part of our code of conduct, and so that requires a public hearing. That public hearing is scheduled for November 17th, and that same evening, an action item will come before you to approve the testing schedule as an addendum to the code of conduct. And that is really all I have for my item today, unless you have questions or comments.
Questions, comments? Thank you, Dr. Itzen.
Okay, thank you.
See you on the 17th.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is the instructional calendar for the 2016-2017 year. Dr. Pruitt is not available today, but Mrs. Mutzenard is here to speak to us about that particular item.
Good afternoon, board members, Dr. Adkins, Mr. Martin. Another year, another instructional calendar, and I had the privilege to facilitate with Dr. Pruitt once again as co-facilitators. And before I go any further, I need to thank Dr. Pruitt's secretary, Melinda Emerald, and of course all our committee members who gave their time and energy. Mr. Teuber, who attended our first meeting when Mrs. Morgan wasn't able to come, and Mrs. Morgan, who attended our second meeting. Once again, we used our interest-based process for the calendar, and once again, the legislature changed dates on us of when we could begin school. So we went with the newest edition of when schools are allowed to start, and students will be allowed to start by August 10th. So we started with that date in mind, backed it up, have teachers beginning August 3rd for their preschool week. We had a lot of work done. We, of course, did our interests, and I'd like to briefly go over what our interests were that we listed. Teaching diversity and respect, student achievement, and alignment ending the first semester by winter break, student, staff, and parent morale, board approval, compliance, community acceptance, socioeconomically disadvantaged students and the impact the calendar may have on them, minimize the need for substitute teachers, or guest teachers, sorry, we changed it, manageability, and alignment of all academic programs throughout the year. That's what we started with, the concepts we wanted to start with. That's what we stuck to through the whole process. We did do it in very short order. We did it in 2 meetings, However, we had a number of people who worked outside of those meetings on the blank calendars they were given to come up with different ideas for each quarter, and went quarter by quarter to come up with the calendar that you have in front of you now. And I have no more to add at this point, and if you have any questions or concerns, I'm happy to address them.
You know, I just want to say thank you again for a job well done, and I'm excited about the first semester ending before the holiday break.
Yes.
As are many of the kids I know.
Yes, it had worked very well in the past before we were thrown that curveball by the legislature. So back to a sound educational practice, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is Mr. Mora.
Yes, you did receive the change order from Mr. Snell. If you have any questions, just please let me know. Otherwise, we'll bring Mr. Mora up to talk about our high school LLL update. I do want to say I do appreciate all the folks coming out to join us today, because I think that it provides us really an opportunity to give everybody, the public, an update as to where we are. This is a very difficult process. It's a very lengthy process. We actually have a couple more opportunities also for public input besides today. We're going to be, Mark and I will be going down, I think Reggie will be joining us down at Hunter's Ridge on the 9th. So we'll be down there to speak to this. And then also we're working on a meeting in December or late November. So Mark will talk to us about, and that will be another opportunity again for public comment. But at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Mora, who will take us through his presentation. And hopefully what this will do is answer a lot of the questions that have come up.
Good afternoon again, board members, Dr. Atkins, Mr. Martin. Joining me today is our long-range planner, Dawn Huff. She'll be able to provide some more additional detail on some of the properties that we vetted as we looked for a site for high school LLL. Just to paint a picture of why we're looking for a high school site down in that area, as we kind of alluded to when we talked about the student assignment plan, we have 3 assignment zones: south, west, and east. The south zone is basically most of Fort Myers, San Carlos, Estero, Bonita Springs. Fort Myers Beach is also included, although it's not part of our choice system. But when we looked at the high school projection and the utilization rates, what we found is that we have a very high utilization rate in all 4 South Zone high schools. And when we talk about utilization, utilization is a measurement of how much of the school's capacity is being used, or how, in a comparison with the enrollment. So right now, Fort Myers High School is at 100.27%. This is of cycle 1, which is a key enrollment data cycle for the state, was at 100.27%, which means we have more kids, maybe a couple, than we have seats in the school. At Cypress Lake High School, it was 100.87. At South Fort Myers High School, it's 103.45, and at Estero High School, 108.31. So what does that indicate to us, especially at South Fort Myers High and Estero High School, which are the most southernmost high schools in the South Zone? They're over capacity, which indicates that it's our responsibility as a district, as a board, as a community, to make sure we provide the seats that we need to educate our young folk appropriately. We started looking at our projections, and that's something that we do annually. And as you all know, we are growing again as a community. Our projected 4-year high school growth for subzones 2 and 3, again, those are the subzones in the southern part of our county. We're looking at 486 additional high school students over the next 4-year period. We're already into one of those years, so you could basically say over the next 3 years, we're growing by almost 500 high school students. And that's a moderate projection. There's obviously different ways you can project it. There's a lot of planned development in that area. We haven't considered that in our projections. However, we do understand that that's a possibility. We took a look at Bonita Springs and the count of students that are of high school age at this particular time, and there are 1,258 high school age students living within the city of Bonita Springs. Now you look at a 1-year growth in that area. Last year we did the same. In 2014-15 we had 1,060 students. So we're almost growing by 200 students in just 1 year, which is probably one of the most, well, aside from the East Zone out in Lehigh, the fastest growing area for high school enrollment would be in the South Zone. Currently, the students, mostly all the 1,258, are transported to Estero High School, which is the closest school to the city center, and that's located 9.4 miles away. And then South Fort Myers High, which is even further north, is 22 miles away. So when we talk about efficiency and equity, this is where those issues come into play. Is it fair to have a high school student on the bus with a school starting at 7:05, 22 miles away? You know, so I think you guys all understand the implications for the district as far as transportation is concerned. So all of this pointed to the need for a high school in the South Zone, particularly in Bonita. As I shared with you, that's where we saw most of the growth, and that's where we have the greatest challenges of getting kids to school at Estero High School. So our plan tentatively looked at opening a 2017 freshman class at Estero High School and a portable campus. Now, that school would have its own identity. It wouldn't be part of Estero High School. It would have its own leadership. It would basically share some of the facility that we were not able to put in a portable. So they'd share the cafeteria, the gymnasium, the track, and the stadium. But that would be for 1 year, and that would be freshmen only. We'd look at between 300 and 350 freshman students in that portable campus that first year. Our plan tentatively was to actually open a building in the South Zone in 2018, the fall of 2018. And that building would have that freshman class that started the year prior at Estero's campus, as well as a new freshman class. So you'd be looking at 700 to 750 students to open that school. And additionally, anybody who would like to transfer that school. We'd obviously want to encourage any of the students that are currently at South Fort Myers High to transfer. They'd be closer to home, reduce our transportation costs, much more efficient for the district as well as the community. Remember, they also jump on the roads during season to travel to South Fort Myers High, either be on a bus or in their own car. So we understand that putting a school closer to home for these kids will also help us ease some of the traffic that we have in that area. So where are we right now? Well, right now we're at the planning phase. This is the district planning phase of the construction timeline. In 2016, we'd commenced the design of the school, and we'd work through permitting. And I want to just touch on the design of the school. It's not something we're going to pull out of the drawer. We do have a prototype. However, we're going to match the building's footprint and what happens in the building to what the community's desires are. We've already had a task force commissioned by the board to look at the type of programming that's most appropriate for that area of the county, with input from parents, from businesses, and we've got a really good start on what type of programming we'll place in that high school. And that will dictate the floor plan and what happens inside that high school. In 2017, early 2018, we'll begin the construction phase. And lastly, as I mentioned before, the fall of 2018 is our planned move-in. So when you talk about a high school, it's more than just us finding seats, and we realize that as a district. There are several benefits for having a new school. It's not something that we do on a whim. There's a lot of thought put into it. We believe in the district it has some benefits for us as far as efficiency is concerned, because it actually helps us address a capacity need that we'll have over the next 10 years. By building a high school in the South Zone, in the Bonita Springs area, will help us take care of that need for 10 years, at least 10 years. It'll also lower the utilization rates in those other South Zone high schools. You remember both South Fort Myers High and Estero are well over 100%. That's going to continue to rise. That's not static. So lowering those utilization rates will make them better schools, because we're able to provide the quality education they need in a school that's not crowded. And lastly, reducing the transportation costs. So those are three of the benefits to the district, which are in turn benefits to the community as well. Let's dig a little deeper into the benefits of a new school in any community that we build in. And I'm not talking in particular this case, but anywhere we put high schools. You think about the last two high schools that we put in at Island Coast High School and North Cape Coral, as well as in Lehigh at East County High. Quality public schools benefit everyone, including those without school-age children. There is research that finds that there's a strong relationship between those who are satisfied with their community with those that have quality schools. So residents seem to be more satisfied with where they live when they have quality schools in their communities. Public schools offer amenities to the entire community. Yes, they are school buildings. Yes, we do use them to educate high school age kids during the day. All of our buildings are utilized by the community, and we encourage it. Remember, the buildings belong to the community. The district manages them for the purposes of educating our children and the community. A lot of our schools have after-school adult education courses. We have after-school hours for lab time. We have workout facilities. All of these have athletic complexes, auditorium space for churches and other groups, and there's a host of other positives for having a facility in your neighborhood. And we have examples of that throughout the district wherever we've put schools down. Now, I know that we have specific courses that are tailored for the community. For instance, at East Lee County High, we do offer English as a second language. That's something that's needed in that community. That's not to say that a school that we put in Bonita Springs would offer the same coursework. We'd look at the community's needs and obviously offer things in that school that fit what the community needs. Public schools have a more indirect benefit of promoting relationships among neighborhood residents. And we find that in a lot of schools. There's a lot of relationships forged between the school and the community. The communities really rally around and support all of our schools. And I'm not just talking about athletic events. If you go into the school as far as performances, it could be a science fair, any of those type of activities. Dunbar High is a good example of that, where the community has really embraced the programming and the students that we have in that school. So we believe those relationships that schools build with the community strengthen the community, not just for the residents, but also the businesses in the area. And these relationships lead to shared interests. One of the interests, obviously, is safety and security. That's an utmost thing to the school district, keeping our students safe in the communities surrounding them. And that's something we have a shared interest with the community members that live in close proximity to a school. We want to have a safe community. We want an ecologically balanced community, environmentally safe. It's not, we have similar shared interests with the communities that we build in. One of the great things about public schools is they provide the community with opportunities to get involved. There's plenty of opportunities in our schools for volunteering, for mentoring. Our students love it when the community gets involved and are involved in their academic life. And lastly, we find that research actually suggests when you have a quality school in your community or close proximity, property values actually improve. The further away a quality school is to your community, the less valuation you have with your properties. So again, guys, this is basically research shown on average. There's always particular conditions, but in general, research shows that there's a positive value associated with closer proximity schools.
Okay, this is a school board meeting. This is a briefing that's held for the benefit of the members of the school board. We respectfully ask that the audience not engage with the speakers or the board while we are being briefed. There will be plenty of opportunity for you to comment at the conclusion of this presentation. Thank you.
You know, in terms of quality rankings of community members have of where they live, the research shows that there's excellence at the elementary and high school level actually has the strongest impact on property values. So having a great school in your community, research will show, and we've quoted the research there for you, that property values actually do improve. So let's talk about our search for a high school in the South Zone. You now know why we're looking there. You now know what our intentions are. Obviously, they're pretty clear. We want to educate children and improve the community. Our search began with looking at what we owned. Makes sense, right? The district has made investments in property, thinking future, that we need to have locations throughout the district, and we have right now in our inventory 20+ properties that have been earmarked for the next 25 years to be used as school sites. We actually looked at 2 sites that we own in the South Zone. One is located at 3 Oaks Parkway in Estero, and another on Tower Road in Bonita Springs. These sites were analyzed by staff as well as the Construction Advisory Committee, which is a board advisory committee made up of community members. And that committee, as well as staff, determined that the Tower Road site was a more viable site for high school LLL. I'll give you a little background. The 3 Oaks Parkway site is located less than a mile from Estero High School, which, if you start looking from a planning perspective, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to put 2 high schools in close proximity to one another. Also, if you look at the distance, again, I mentioned it's almost 10 miles away from Estero to Bonita Springs city center. It really doesn't behoove us to put a school so far away in another city or village, if you will. So that the selection between those two sites, the Tower Road site was the more viable high school site for LLL. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the Tower Road site. The Tower Road site is off of Bonita Grand. It's north of Bonita Beach Road. It's actually north of Terry. It is a 40-acre site. Tower Road kind of bisects the site. It's located just south of where the mining operation is off of Bonita Grand right now. So that was our intent, to actually build on the property that we owned. Shortly thereafter, when we revealed our plans to build on that site, our board and the district received many concerns from Bonita Springs residents and some activists regarding our development within an area known as the Density Reduction Groundwater Resource Area, or the DRGR. So that particular pushback has put the district into a mode to look for an alternate site. So that's where we left our district-owned site and started to look at a different property to build on for high school LLL. As we talk about this, keep in mind that we do have a construction timeline to meet that need for those seats in 2018. The fall of 2018 is our target date. One of the other unique challenges that we had from a district is that we didn't have the ability to shop for property with cash. As you probably followed in the news, we do have some capital challenges. So we had to look at a solution that would position ourselves without building or incurring more debt to the district. So we looked at leveraging the property that we owned at Three Oaks Parkway in a swap to purchase a more viable site. Remember that the swap will be contingent on the price on the assessed value of the Three Oaks site. So we couldn't go shop. The limit wasn't, the ceiling wasn't limitless. We had to work within what we could get for the property in Three Oaks Parkway. So again, the intent here was not to incur any additional expense or debt to the district or the community. I'm going to quickly go into how we've, the assessment that we've done on all the properties, and Dawn is going to help walk us through the 11 properties that we looked at, to explain why we arrived where we are. So 11, as I mentioned, were brought forward. I wouldn't say that they are all possible sites, because a lot of them were undersized or prohibitive because of other state statutes, such as a location close to an active railway, or their shape just wasn't conducive for siting a high school and all its ancillary facilities. The assessment that was done by district staff, as well as the Construction Advisory Committee, includes size. A high school needs a minimum of 40 acres. We prefer more so that we can build better bus ramps and parent pickup to keep traffic off the road. So 40-acre minimum. Price, again, I told you the price is dependent on what we thought we could get for the Three Oaks Parkway site. Location, and I'll be honest with you, location is very key to us to be more efficient and effective. It's obvious that we want to be where students live. Makes sense. I mean, that's a given. Transportation. We've got to ensure that we can get buses, cars, safely to and off our school locations. Safety, and I'm talking about safety of the school itself, the community that's within. We want to make sure that our school provides the best environment for our kids to learn in. And lastly, and I mentioned this already with location, is proximity to student population. We do quite a bit of mapping in the planning department. We know where students are clustered by age, by grade. So we know where students live. I think the challenge is finding property in close proximity to where the kids live. And that's going to be an ongoing challenge for the district as our community begins to grow again, as well as the lack of comprehensive planning by a lot of municipalities. We really need to be thoughtful about when we develop, to keep in mind that there's going to be a population that needs to be educated within that community. And I believe there's a lot that we as a district, as well as our municipalities, can work on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dawn, and she's going to walk you through each of the properties. She'll describe where it's located. I'm sorry, it's kind of small up on that screen there, but I think you all, if you're Bonita residents anyways, will get a good idea of the properties that we're describing.
Good afternoon. Property 1 is a 43-acre site located on Old 41 and is adjacent and bisected by an active railroad, which is a school is not allowed by statute, and the site layout is not conducive. Property 2 is a 46-acre site located on Old 41 as well, adjacent the same railroad and bisected by a charter, and the site layout is also not conducive. Property 3 is a 50-acre
But
parcel.
if I may, and Don's citing a statute, a Florida statute that prohibits public schools from building, abutting a active railway. You'll probably see there's a charter school on that site, right? And there's no issues with the charter school being there. And obviously there's rules that apply to charter schools and there's rules that apply to public traditional schools. So in this particular case, that school's there and we're not. And you might actually ask, well, that's not an active railway. I haven't seen a boxcar come down that railway in years. And we looked into that. We looked into the railway. They have no plans of vacating that railway. As a matter of fact, they shared future plans for light rail in that area. So based on that input we got from the railroad, we're not going to take the risk of putting a school next to something that state statute prohibits us from doing so.
Property 3 is a 50-acre parcel located 1.5 miles east of I-75 on the north side of Bonita Beach Road. This parcel is located in the DRGR and has limited usable land due to the lakes. Property 4 is comprised of multiple parcels to create 160 acres, partially located in the DRGR. This parcel is just under 2 miles east of I-75, also on the north side of Bonita Beach Road, and has limited usable land due to lakes. Property 5 is an 80-acre parcel just east of I-75 on the northwest side of Bonita Beach Road and Bonita Grand Drive. It is comprised of multiple parcels by several owners and some currently with legal issues, and assemblage would extend far beyond the scheduled school need. A portion is also located in the DRGR. Property 6 is 50 acres east and adjacent I-75, approximately 2 miles north of Bonita Beach Road, and it's located in the DRGR and lacks appropriate access. Property 7 is 52 acres, located on the south side of East Terry Street, just west of Bonita Grand Drive. It's in the DRGR and is owned by Lee County and part of the 2020 lands, and would be difficult for Lee County to sell. Property 8 is 67 acres, located approximately 2 miles north of Bonita Beach Road on Imperial Parkway, just west of I-75. This is an appropriate site, but in a prohibitive price range and currently under contract.
I'll just interject there. When she says prohibitive price range, remember the unique way we're trying to acquire property is swapping the Three Oaks site. The assessed value that we had on the Three Oaks site was much, much less than what this property was on the market for.
Property 9 is an 80-acre parcel on the northwest corner of Bonita Grand Drive and East Terry Street, and is also in the DRGR. Property 10 is an 80-acre parcel on the east side of Bonita Grand Drive, just north and across the street from the District Tower Road property. This parcel is in the DRGR and adjacent to a mining operation with uncertain use terms. Through consideration and assessment of all properties, resulted in only one viable property for the high school, which is property 11.
I would point out that we are under negotiations. We do not own the property and we have not purchased it yet.
This is a 43-acre multi-parcel located outside the DRGR, and the land use is appropriate. This parcel is on the south side of Bonita Beach Road, just east of I-75, and as Mr. Morris said, currently we are under negotiations and do not own this site. And I turn it back to Mr. Mora.
So you see that we went through 11 properties. That's what's available right now in Bonita Springs. Unfortunate for us, we've landed at this is the only viable property. So I want to pose to you that, is it the best site for Lee County? I think it's pretty easy to say, probably not. Again, if you looked at the factors that we look at assessing a school siting, we want to be in the proximity of students. We want to be a place that we can provide safe and efficient transportation. But in this particular case, without a viable site anywhere in those areas, this is where we landed.
Mr. Moore, I hate to interrupt. Just going back to, if I look at property number 5, I think there's probably been more questions about this particular property that have come up from residents, and about maybe talk a little bit more about the challenges of this particular piece of property. I know you mentioned that portion of it's in the DRGR, I think the headwaters of the Imperial River, so there might be Corps of Engineers concerns, and then the piece about several parcel owners and current legal issues, how it may be difficult for us to acquire that piece of property.
Absolutely. Dr. Atkins is correct on all those points. This is one that initially caught our interest because of the size, for one. Secondly, it doesn't buffer any real community at this moment. But the northern part of that, you'll see it's like a backwards L shape. The top part of that property is located in the DRGR, which removes 20 acres of it. So we're working with a 60-acre site. And running along the north side of that property are the headways of the Imperial River, which we know is environmentally sensitive and ecologically sensitive. And we understood that there would be some challenges in developing land so close to a sensitive area. Dr. Atkins hinted at the fact that this is a multi-parcel piece of land owned by many owners. I think there's 14 involved here. And at least 3 of them have some considerable legal challenges right now that would make it very difficult to assemble a deal. It would have definitely put us outside our range to build a high school before 2018. In addition, you all know that mining operation is still active north of this site on Bonita Beach, Bonita Grand. So there's obviously some issues with traffic and safety as well with this site. And again, a lot of our buses would empty out possibly onto Bonita Beach Road. So this is not without its own challenges with traffic as well. But there was a considerable enough issues here that forced us to leave this site after quite a few months of trying to work on some type of way to attain this property.
Thank you.
So in this search, we understand at this particular time, and again, I think sometimes we could put the cart before the horse, but in this particular case, there was going to be ample opportunity for us to collaborate within municipalities. Part of our vetting of a site includes their assessment. They're the professionals in the area. They understand the implications of putting anything, like any development. It is their concern for what we're doing in their community. We would obviously provide for and consider community input as well as municipal input. We provide for ongoing communication. This is one way we're doing it. Again, Dr. Atkins mentioned the opportunity on November 16th. Board policy actually requires us to put together a committee for the purposes of analyzing and assessing properties. The membership of that group is comprised of members of EDAC and DAC, our Equity and Diversity Advisory Council, as well as our District Advisory Council. They're made up of non-district members, community members. It's a public meeting. So it's an opportunity for the residents, wherever we determine to put a school, have the opportunity to come forward with some concerns. Those concerns are considered by those committee members. So that meeting is on November 16th, right here in this particular room at 6 o'clock. Consulting with local and state agencies, we know that wherever we go, we're going to have implications for traffic, for noise, and for light. That's not different from any other site that we worked with. Similar concerns were raised when we built Island Coast High School and Eastleigh County High School, which are our 2 most recent schools. So we understand that we're not doing this alone. There's some collaboration and input from community and municipalities. And we certainly want to collaboratively address and mitigate the community's concerns. We want to fit into a community. We don't want to stick out. This is our purpose, is to educate kids, and we want to be a part of the fabric of the community. Now, these are not assessments of this particular site, but in general, any site that we go to, we understand, as I mentioned, traffic is a big concern. Typically, our schools have an enrollment between 1,800 and 2,000 students. Only juniors and seniors are allowed to drive onto campus. And we found that in some schools, there's very few students that actually drive because of the economy. In other schools, there's a lot more kids that drive. Estero happens to be one of the schools where they do have quite a few students that drive to and from home. And we do have busing. So we know that buses, cars, parent pickup, staff members, teachers would contribute to traffic in the area. Noise, for the most part, would be contained at athletic events that happened outside. If you've ever been around a high school during the day, it's quite quiet. There might be some ruckus at the beginning of the day as the buses drop off the students, but for a predominant amount of the day, most of the activity takes place inside the school. Again, noise basically associated with sporting events during the school year, not typically during the summer. Light, obviously, when we have those events, sporting events, there's going to be some stadium lighting. All of our schools are lit for safety purposes, but I don't think that light is intrusive. Safety, we've already gone through safety. Our schools are very safe and secure, single point of entry. They all have fencing. We're more concerned with making sure nobody gets into our schools, let alone anybody getting out. We do employ an SRO at all of our schools. Our high schools have a full-time SRO and a full-time security staff. We talked about property values. We all understand that property values are affected by a school. Access, and I know that's a concern with this particular site we're looking at. We certainly, and it's not our intention to block access to communities. There's many ways that we can address that, but access is not one of the things we're looking to do to communities, is cut that off. And we understand quality of life is an issue, and we would think that quality of life, we would want to improve it by adding a school.
Mark, I'm looking at the presentation. It's doesn't look like it's keeping up with what
Thank
you're
you, sir.
saying.
Thank you, sir. I'll move a little quicker. You know, as
I don't mean that. I'm just looking at what you're talking about and what's on the screen. I just wanted to make sure they were aligned.
Okay, thank you. When we talk about traffic, ways that we've mitigated in the past is looking at whether or not an additional traffic light will help with the flow of cars and the load of cars on a road. Us routing on and off our campus, where buses go, where parents pick up kids, where students are parking, so we're not commingling that traffic or depositing it on the access road. Off-peak traffic on and off the site. Again, a high school is an early start school. Typically, students are in their classrooms by 7:05. Dismissals at 2:05. So with a high school, it does not compete with the peak commuting times for most communities. There's a lot we can do with appropriately siting an entrance and exits to a school, as well as where we site parking areas and bus ramp. All of those things have impacts on traffic that we would certainly consider wherever we build a school. Noise, we kind of talked about this and touched on it. The appropriate siting of athletic fields, bus ramp, parking lots where a lot of the noise is generated, putting that in a strategic place on that site or any site, using the natural buffers. The school itself could be a buffer in that case, or surrounding buildings. There's natural buffers such as trees. We've actually used berms in some high schools to cut noise down. And at the high school level, we don't have a whole lot of public announcement use on the outside speakers, with the exception of sporting events. It's more typical for our elementary schools where they have a lot of outdoor recess and other classes outdoors. But high schools, like I mentioned before, are quite quiet during the school day. Light, again, can be mitigated by appropriately siting of athletic fields. We've done that on most of our high school sites. The fields are sited in such a way that they're not intrusive. A lot of advanced technology is out there on the market now for stadium lighting that kind of controls the light from spilling off into the surrounding community. And the use of light shields has been effective in some areas when appropriate. We understand that when you're working with municipalities, all of them have laws and regulations and rules, and we understand Bonita Springs does have a dark skies ordinance that we'd be compelled to comply with. As far as safety, and I kind of touched on all these already, the school is a very safe place. We intend it to be. A learning environment should be safe. It should be safe for the kids that are there as well as the teachers and staff that work there. We have fully secured campuses. They are pretty much covered inch by cameras. We have perimeter fencing in all of our schools. Again, a single controlled point of entry, full-time school security staff, including a Lee County Sheriff's Department SRO. And we have very strict school policies for entering and leaving campus for students. Again, I mentioned this earlier, and property values, as far as what research shows us, is there's a positive value associated with closer proximity to schools, and often a negative value associated with communities that are further distance from a quality school. Community access, we touched on this. We certainly, wherever we go, collaborate with residents to ensure that they have the appropriate and convenient access to their communities. And we can do that a lot of times by appropriately siting the building as well as siting entrance and exits to the school. You know, quality of life, we touched upon this about what the school brings as far as benefits. You know, our schools offer a lot of amenities and opportunities to the community. We certainly always look to collaborate because we know that where we go and build a school has unique aspects that we want to maintain and celebrate. And there's always that important balance between the school's purpose within the context of the surrounding community. So that means building a school that fits into the community and it doesn't stick out. And that might be taking advantage of the site, might be taking advantage of the local amenities, but it's always in the interest of the school district to put schools where they fit into the community. Dr. Atkins mentioned some opportunities for additional input. We do have a tentative meeting for Monday, November 9th with the Hunters Ridge community. Our district site selection committee is going to happen right here, November 16th at 6 p.m. And we're working now, and we had an original date of December 14th for a community meeting at Bonita Springs Fire Headquarters. We're reworking that date. That did not work for the fire department. Their community room is being used, but we're looking for a date in late November, early October to hold that. So there'll be some opportunities for the community to share their input as well as during this meeting here. So what are the next steps here? Well, obviously, this site is still being analyzed. We're not done. We have a preliminary traffic study that's looking at traffic. There's some environmental studies that we'll need to do before we even purchase the property. Again, continuing the solicitation of community and municipal input. We need to address any of the concerns that have emerged. And the board has to consider all other available opportunities that we have to get the seats where we need them, or the capacity where we need it. So that's the end of our presentation, and I want to open it up to the board for any comments or questions they might have.
I'm sorry, just real quick before we get started with questions, just a couple things we wanted to note. One is that sometimes in the board briefings we have a bit of a limited opportunity for public comment, just based on our board protocols. We will have I don't want to say unlimited, but when we go down to these communities, that's, we're there as long as we need to be there to receive public comment. So both times we're down, like next week, and then whenever we set that next meeting up in either early December or late November, that again will be, unlimited as far as we're concerned. The other thing, Mark, you might want to mention some of the things we're trying to do to be responsive to community concerns. A number of folks have emailed us, and we have collected those email addresses and are trying to use that as a mechanism that we can turn around and email updates as to where we are in this process. So that's something that we're working on. And in addition, I think after this briefing, we want to set up a website that will keep really the community posted in terms of where we are with our, with our timelines, our property, our construction, and so forth.
No, you're correct. We've captured all the emails that were sent to us, and there's quite a few. We built a mail group with all those email addresses, and our plan is to, as things develop, to send updates out to whoever's emailed us. We also received some letters, so we'll also respond to those in writing. Dr. Atkins, correct about the website, and anybody who's emailed us, we'll send you that link once that site is open. It's going to be a high school LLO website. It'll have all the information that you might be interested in as far as what the school is going to look like, where we are with the property search, some of the issues that we've already collected. We've started to analyze all of the issues that come in and actually categorize them. So we got a good idea of what what all of the concerns are, basically. On that website also, there's going to be an opportunity for community members or anybody that's interested to post questions, which district staff will respond to. So we're going to build an FAQ based on any of the questions and responses that we have.
And finally, I just want to mention that we have tried to keep the Bonita City Council and manager and mayor all informed along the way. So we have been in contact with them so they know where we are in the process. So anyway, I don't know if you want to speak more about that, but I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
No, that's correct. Like I said, as a part of the process of vetting any site, you have to involve their assessment of it. And so they understand where we are in the process. The update today is similar to what they understand. So you're correct in saying that.
Okay, board members, comments, questions? Mrs. Dozier.
Well, I have the magic question, and the magic question is, what is the recommendation from staff as far as the property that we are looking at?
That's a great question. I think our presentation kind of suggested what we were actually looking for. And unfortunately, what we're looking for doesn't exist right now in the inventory of available properties down there. Obviously, it's a site that's in the center of where students live, and that unfortunately is west of I-75. And those of you that live in Bonita Springs understand that there's not a whole lot of available property west of I-75. On our presentation, Ms. Dozier, we did show a few that are located west of I-75, and there's some things that are prohibitive for us developing there. So, our recommendation is to obviously find a location that works for the district as well as works for the community, that is a place where we're able to service the kids in their own community. I would rather not continue to bus kids at an expense to the district as well as the community north of where they live. So I wish we did have that magic property that just appeared. It just doesn't, and I think it's a lesson to us in the future to make sure that we position ourselves and work collaboratively with municipalities to identify appropriate sites for schools based on our projected needs well into the future, and we're working towards that right now. So I wish I could give you that magic property. I don't think any of the ones that we looked at are perfect by any means. Unfortunately, we have some restriction from building in the DRGR because some of those sites are quite attractive. They're large enough. They're in good proximity to transportation routes. Even if they're not in proximity to students, it enables our transportation department to get kids to and from school effectively. But we do have that issue with the DRGR. As you noticed, the property inventories we shared, a majority of them are in the DRGR.
Mrs. LaRiviere.
A couple of questions that sharing from some members of the community that have spoken or emailed me. So let's see. Thank you for addressing the part that state statute tells us we cannot be near an active railroad, and clarifying that I guess it's the Seminole Gulf line that, so their plans are that it will be an active light traffic, but it will be active. So thank you for clarifying that. And also the woes that we have that charter schools do not have the same regulations and rules that we have to follow. Property 5. One of the questions that has come up from members of the community has to do with the fact, could we not declare eminent domain and to get all of those properties?
That's a good question, Ms. LaRiviere. We actually looked into that. We're obviously not experts at eminent domain. The city obviously, by statute, cannot take any property by eminent domain. It would be something that the school board would need to do. From what we understand of this process, while legally it might be pretty quick to do, there are 14 separate owners that you'd have to negotiate with and make happy. And I don't know what that means in terms of time, but I would submit to you that a lot of people that have provided us information is that would take some time to accomplish, probably outside of what we have for a timeline. And in the end, the property might end up costing more than its assessed value because you're working with individual owners. Again, this is a property that we looked at pretty long and hard, and even the folks that we were working with as far as brokers consider this a tough one, especially with the timeline that we're given.
Just to be more specific, the legal advice that we have received that this would be a very lengthy process that would really go, we feel, well outside of our timeline. And then secondly, in terms of a financial cost, I mean, you're talking about at least what the value of the property is, if not more, to do that. So probably would go well outside of what we have in terms of ability to pay. As you're well aware, we're trying to do a land swap or a sell and a purchase, and it's going to be difficult to get these 14 parcels under our ownership with the current resources that we have.
Mr. Martin.
Just to give you a little bit of clarification with respect to the use of eminent domain and the issues that raises. As is mentioned, the city does not have authority to appear under statute to take through eminent domain properties for the purpose of educational purposes. The school board would have to take that action. As has been pointed out, there are some legal title issues with portions of this particular parcel. Of course, if the board is going to take ownership of a property for the purpose of building a school site, it would be important to be sure that you have clear title. So that's one concern in that respect. With multiple property owners, of course, eminent domain becomes more complex. The normal process of eminent domain can take quite some time, can take 2, 3, maybe 4 years to complete before you receive title. There is a process under law, a quick take process, wherein a school board or another governing authority exercising eminent domain can take title within 3, maybe 4 months, based upon an assertion that the ownership of the property is necessary for the operation of that government entity, and based upon the payment of a good faith estimate of the value of that property. So that is an option whereby you can obtain title quickly. One of the negatives with that process is when you establish that good faith estimate for the value of the property and pay that into the registry of the court in order to obtain title, that's not the end of the issue. You still have to go through the full litigation to determine what the actual value of that property is and what the government entity is going to have to pay for it. So in terms of ensuring that the cost of that property is limited to an amount that you have available for purchase, the quick take process makes that difficult because you really don't know what you're going to pay until the end of the process, and at that point you don't have the option of saying, no, we don't want that property, because you've already taken title and built upon it. Obviously, there are additionally complexities with respect to 14 different owners. There would be litigation expenses involved if eminent domain had to be utilized, which of course are multiplied when you have a substantial number of owners.
Thank you. Another question, Mrs. LaRiviere?
Yes, property 10. I know it states that it is in the DRGR. How much of the acreage is in the DRGR?
All of it is, ma'am. All 80 acres.
Okay, thank you.
I think the other concern with this is also the mine that's located just north of here. And I'm uncertain what the lease terms are. I mean, Benita's working through that right now. And if you go up and assess that site, you'll see that there are quite a few big trucks rolling out of that mine minute by minute. So again, another safety concern. Without those concerns there, that's a very attractive site. I mean, 80 acres is a great piece of land.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to be clear, there was Ms. Dozier, I think, asked for staff recommendation, and after vetting all the properties, at this point we're down to the one property, which is the last one they listed, which is the 43-acre site located south of Bonita Beach Road, just east of 75, that's currently under negotiation. So that would be the one that we're looking at this time as our best option.
Right, thank you. Mrs. Fisher?
Two things. I've been following this process for about a year, and I want to thank you for this particular presentation because it really cleared up a lot of questions that I had, so I won't waste time asking those again. But looking at the properties, are there any suitably located properties that are not available for sale currently? Or are these properties it in terms of size? Do you know what I'm saying? Is there another 40 or 60 or 80 acre site somewhere? Maybe one of these people out here owns it and they want to donate it to us.
Name it after them.
Yeah.
We can name it after you, yeah.
That's a great question, Mary. I know that Ms. Fisher, we shop for land that was on the market, that we knew that was available, that was being marketed, and obviously there's land throughout the county. Some of it is for sale, not for sale. We can certainly identify land that appears to be vacant by in a community and do some research, but that again is a process in itself, and the people that we engage with finding a property have a lot of knowledge of the area. They knew what was available on the market. We moved just beyond staff. We reached out to folks that are professionals in this area and have a good understanding of the community, and this is what they brought us. I would hope that if there was something that was speculated to be available property, that would have been brought forward as well. But to our knowledge, these are the properties that are available. It doesn't mean there's a vacant piece of property that's not on the market that someone's holding on to that might be a prospective site. But these are the ones, when you do a search for property, you look for the ones that are on the market, and these are ones that were brought to us either by brokers that we worked with, or we had a few that were brought to us by community members. So there was some input there.
Thank you. And I know it's been a lot of work. Thank you very much.
And I would also add, I know that when the Tower Road site was challenged by the community, that the city council actively got involved also in the process of reaching out to the community and trying to find out whether or not there was other suitable property. So I think within the Bonita Springs community for the past year, there has been a concerted effort by a variety of people to involve themselves in the process and do what they could to support the system's effort to find an appropriate site. Mrs. Dozier.
Well, I'm looking at the size of this property. It's 43 acres. And when you're talking about building a high school, what is the normal acreage that we like to have?
That's a great question. 40 acres minimum. We'd like to have more because it gives us some flexibility. However, we have a few schools, high schools, that are built on sites less than 40 acres. South Fort Myers High is built on, I believe, 38 acres. And North Fort Myers High, which has been there for a long time, is built on, I think, 36 acres. So we have some instances. However, when you look at those instances, when they're on smaller sites, there's some restrictions, parking, bus ramp siting. So we'd really like the flexibility of more space than less space. But 40 acres minimum is what Mr. Snell looks for when he's building a school, high school anyways.
Other board member, Mrs. LaRiviere.
Our high schools that we have currently, correct me, I may be wrong, they're only 2 stories high, correct?
I believe the prototype is 2 stories high.
Prototype. Because I know that we have middle schools where the prototype is 3 stories high.
Correct. Challenger Middle would be an example of that.
Right. So there would be a possibility to work with a prototype to maybe do 3 stories to allow more land space.
I think it's a possibility, and I think Mr. Snell could probably answer that question much better than I. But my question would be, what would that do to impact on the cost of construction of a school
Well,
when
that's
you
true,
add the
because
third
the higher
floor?
you go, the more it costs.
Right.
I
But then again, you
know
could
that.
save money on the property that you need to build the school on. So I would defer to Mr. Snell on the answer to that question. But I'd assume that the cost of constructing a taller school is much more expensive.
Yeah, it is. More concrete, that's footage.
Other questions, comments? Dr. Atkins? No?
No, other than say that I do appreciate the work of a lot of people on this particular project. I mean, this took a tremendous effort to get to where we are now. We still have a lot of work to do. We do look forward to continuing to work with the City of Bonita and the residents as we try to find a site. We do believe that our goal is to try to build a high school in the Bonita area because that's where our students are needed. We understand there's concerns, and we look forward to hearing them.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Come to public comment. Mr. Martin, you have 5 cards, I understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How many people in the audience have not filled out, excuse me, sir, could you just sit down, please, till I figure out how we're going to do this? How many of you are planning to address the board who have not filled out a card? No, you don't have to fill out a card. We're just trying to figure out how we're going to organize this. So, okay, rather than have you read your names to me, starting on this side in the front row, if you would number off starting at 6, just say, we're going to count off. 6, 7, okay, 8, 9. Second row. Just count off
It might be better if they'd raise their hands.
Raise their
Ms. Moore.
hand and then put their hand down as they
Okay,
count off.
let's do it that way then. We started off 6, 7, 8. No hands in that row. Okay. In the stripe, is your hand up? Okay. What is your number? 9.
9.
Okay.
And then this is 10.
Front had his up.
He's 10.
All right. This is not going to work either.
Stand up.
Stand up if you wish to speak. Here you go. Now you know who's
All right.
going to speak.
Please count off and sit down after you have counted.
1,
No, start at 6, please.
6,
6.
8, 9.
Okay.
22, 23, 24, 25.
No, you, ma'am.
28.
Okay, so I'm going to have Mr. Martin call the first 5 names, and then I'm going to ask 6 through 10 to stand over here, and 11 through 15 to stand over here after those first 5 have spoken, and that's how we'll try to cycle through this. Now, how much time do we have with that many speakers?
Because we have over 20 speakers, the policy allows 2 minutes per speaker.
2 minutes per speaker. The only other option we can offer you is that if you want to be represented by, let's say, 5 people, and then we can give 5 people 5 minutes, if that's a more effective way of communicating with us. Either that, or we're at the 2 minute per person. Stay with the 2 minute per person. I mean, okay. Sure, let's go through the first 5 and see where we are. Okay. Mr. Martin, if you call the...
First 5 are Donna Stone, Beverly Greenstein, Susan Berry, Sheila Case, and Betsy Vaughn.
Good afternoon. My name is Donna Stone. I'm on the External Affairs Committee for Worthington Country Club in Bonita Springs. Yesterday, we had a very successful townwide meeting with 300 Bonita residents, which was the capacity of our room at Worthington. Per the Bonita Comp Plan, the high school must be in a central town location. Plus, during your own criteria, you fail on 5 of your own criteria on the location that you're talking about at Hunter's Ridge. The small size of the lots they want to use provide no room for future high school facility expansion for any town population growth. That only 1% of the students live east of 75. That means that, and no student within a 2-mile radius has to walk or ride a bike. So beyond 2 miles, they take the bus. So that means the majority of the students at the location you're talking about in front of Hunter's Ridge will be forced to take a bus because they don't have the financial means or they're not old enough to drive. So that is a high cost to the county for bus transportation. There are no sidewalks and only 2-lane roads on Bonita Grande and East Terry Street. The Bonita residents have previously clearly told the city they do not want a 4-lane road on East Terry or Bonita Grande for conservation reasons with runoff into the Kiel Canal, the Imperial River watershed, and our city's water aquifer. The proposed school location removes Hunters Ridge Boulevard, their front gate, and Hunters Ridge will then be forced to use the back entrance of Bonita Grande opposite Worthington's front gate. They will have to buy a villa down near Quail West and build a road to it as their back entrance. That means Hunters Ridge, Worthington, Quail West, Burnwood Plaza, and the high school will all be using Bonita Grande at 7 o'clock in the morning. If there is an accident on the south side of Bonita Grande, Hunters Ridge will not be able to go in and out.
Excuse me, your time is up. Thank you. Please, board policy is no comment, no clapping during public comment, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Beverly Greenstein, and I'm also a resident of Worthington Country Club. When I spoke 2 weeks ago before you, I was in favor of a high school in Bonita Springs, although very opposed to any location east of I-75 for many of the reasons Donna Stone just mentioned. Since that time, I've come to realize that the school board has ruled out every piece of property other than the property that would totally disrupt 3 gated communities of senior citizens. Bonita Grand is the main entry for Quail West and Worthington Country Club. Our city manager has told us that an addition of 300 to 400 cars plus 30 buses will be arriving and leaving on a daily basis. This is fraught with disaster. In addition, within walking distance of the proposed school site, there is a 7-Eleven, there's a Publix with a wine section and an additional liquor store. Is that what we want to expose our children to? The athletic fields will present another intrusion to our lives with noise pollution and nighttime lighting. We are outdoor communities whose residents enjoy entertaining and relaxing on their lanais. Our quality of life will change. The Chamber of Commerce says the school will bring in jobs and create more revenue. Since schools are not on the tax rolls, this area would create more revenue with a few good restaurants. It should also be remembered that the communities east of I-75 represent a rather large tax base for the city, the county, and the school district. How can you possibly think this is a good location? If a school cannot be built that will benefit students and community,
Thank you,
then
ma'am. Your time
please
is
don't
up.
build.
Susan Barry?
Susan Barry, I'm also from Worthington Country Club. I'm going to thank you for hearing me out. I appreciate the time. My perspective is safety issues for everyone concerned, including the children. When I leave occasionally for my job, and I'm a medical professional, I leave very early in the morning, and on that Bonita Grand Drive, as I leave the Worthington gate, there are quite often cars backed all the way up to our gate with vendors trying to get into the various locations of all 3 gated communities, and they only let them in at certain times. So I don't know if anybody's ever considered that, but it should be part of the traffic study when it's been done. And I hope that that'll be done before the proposal gets to the point of, to quote Mr. Mora, the cart before the horse issue. As a medical professional, I also worked in a high school many years ago, a regional high school, and understand that there are emergencies. Living in a gated community with an elderly population, there are emergencies, and emergencies don't keep time. So you have to be real careful how congested that one little area is going to be that puts all these people at risk. Thank you for your time.
Sheila Case?
My name is Sheila Case. My main issue is we're talking about a place for children to grow up, be happy, be safe. Now, right now, the majority of the population of children are west of 75, but there's a huge group in a 2-mile area that have to walk to this school. We don't have the sidewalks. We are not in a position out there for these children to cross Bonita Beach Road at 7 o'clock, 6:45 in the morning with the traffic that is going up and down that road, trucks coming out of this quarry that you're talking about. This is just total confusion. Now they walk down the street, and on either side are 2 convenience stores selling cigarettes and alcohol. Now they have to go eat right under the entrance to go on to 75, walk under 75, walk across the exit from 75 into a massive mess of traffic attempting to get into a school. This is not a safe pattern or route for children to be going to school. This is not the location. It is not a safe location for children.
Speakers 6 through 10, please come to the podium.
Oh, you didn't get
Betsy
me yet?
Vaughn. Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
I'm getting to
sorry.
you. Betsy Vaughn, proceed.
Okay, thanks. Good afternoon. I have a similar but slightly different topic. This past February, board members announced that there would be no shovels in the ground, marking the start of construction for the desperately needed, as we've seen, Bonita Springs High School, alias LLL. The district simply did not own a viable site, as we found with Tower Road, for this important project that was originally slated to begin in fall 2015 for a fall 2016 opening. At that time, back in February, I voiced my concern to the board that the issue of a suitable site for a new school had not been on the school board's front burner for a longer time. I've not seen the new property. Well, I did get educated just now in this meeting. That's so controversial to many people. I've not been a part of the land search, so I am not speaking on let's do it here, let's do property 11, let's do property 5. That's not my issue. I'm speaking to a larger issue, and that is the site for this new school should have been settled with community collaboration and input 2 years ago. Construction should have started a couple months ago so that 350 South Zone freshmen would not have to start their high school careers in portable classrooms on the campus of Estero High School. I know that there have been other soft openings for schools, but the situation is less than ideal. Although the pod of portables will be a separate entity from Estero High School, the makeshift situation is not how Pioneer students and teachers should have to spend their inaugural year at the new school.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Your time's up, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Speakers 6 through 10, please come to one of the two podiums, 6 through 10.
I'm
Number
Fred.
6, sir. Number
Please state
6,
your name.
please proceed.
6 gave me his position, so I could speak first. There he is. If you want, he'll speak, but he might even be willing to step aside or somebody else. What do you want to do?
No, that's fine. Go right ahead.
Okay.
Just state your name so we know.
My name is Fred Forbes. At this point, I'm speaking as a president of the board of Hunters Ridge. I'm also a licensed architect and engineer in another state, the engineer being the other state. I am in Florida architect. Number one, the information presented about the Tower Road site was somewhat misrepresented. 13 acres by one of your own school board's statement to me was unbuildable. Number two, it was deep, deep, deep in the northwest quadrant of the DRGR. You had 4 city councilmen write you a letter and say that was an inappropriate place. Other comments on some of the other sites are not necessarily accurate. One of them, for example, I think an 80-acre site, it's not all in the DRGR. It's already been upzoned. So I think you need to investigate some of these other sites. Now, I've got a history of Hunters Ridge Boulevard, Hunters Ridge community, and we know that you have to take our access road in order to get FDOT to approve that entrance being okay to be close enough to the ramps like it is. The history of Hunters Ridge Boulevard is here. We paid for the turn lane out there that you want to take away from us so you can use it. More important, the high school now is showing a stadium that's on top of our community. The noise is right up against the board fence virtually. Looking at the site as an architect and an engineer, you don't have near enough parking. When you have ball games, you're going to be trying to use the parking lot in front of Publix. You're going to damage the businesses there as well as Hunters Ridge, as well as Worthington. You're going to put more traffic onto Bonita Grande by your latest plan, and that's going to screw up their front entrance, Worthington. It's
Thank you,
gonna mess
thank you,
us
sir.
up.
Your time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes. No, 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 I'm sorry. If it wasn't clear, no. It's 2 minutes per speaker unless, all right.
You can't yield, you can't, it's against policy to yield your time.
Turn on the mic, please.
Okay, how's that? Okay, so I'm basically going to finish off where Fred ended off. So basically what the current consideration, and from listening, and this is more of an observation than opinion, but based on everything I've heard and everything I've read, because of a timeline that you're on, you're trying to put a round circle in a square peg for no good reasons to the community other than you're forced by time. I assure you that between Quail West, Worthington, and Hunters Ridge, there will be enough voice and enough legal action that you will never stay on your timeline. Thank you.
My name is Frank Zenchu. I'm a member of Hunters Ridge, and for the last 38 years I was associated with a neighboring school district serving in various capacities and have been involved with startups of elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. I agree that Bonita Springs deserves to have a full service high school. With effective teaching and leadership, it will become a source of pride for the Bonita community. However, you have to understand that there are some negative aspects associated with a full-service high school on the surrounding community and residential developments. A fully functioning high school is in operation quite often 7 days per week. I found it humorous when I listened to comments that how bad could it be since there will only be 5 football games. In reality, that's 5 varsity, 5 JV, 8 to 10 male and female soccer, men's and women's track, band practices, and a variety of school activities. So what appears to be simple, when you begin to really take a look at it from knowledge base, is something entirely different. There will be evening events, both school and community-based, adult education evening classes, and buses. Yes, 41 or more buses. And bus loops take up a lot of room. But they're traveling in and out in the morning and the afternoons. So there will be lighting, sound, and traffic issues possibly 7 days per week. The structure of the housing developments in the immediate area reflect that of retirement communities. The proximity to I-75 has already been pointed out by the school board to be a reason for rejection of a site, one of the previous sites.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Speaker number 9.
Thank you.
My name is John Simoncini. I'm a resident of Hunters Ridge. I've been in the same position as you've been on in my town as on the zoning board, so I know what you're going through. I'm just telling you, has any one of you ever looked at the property? Have you? Have you looked at the ramifications of us moving our front gate to our back gate? We don't have the room inside. I'm just telling you that before you make a decision, you better look at it because it's not the right place for the children, especially there's no children in our area. That's all I want to say.
Speaker number 10. Speakers 11 through 15, please come to one of the 2 podiums. Thank you.
My name is Warren Tullen. I'm a resident of Hunters Ridge for the past 14 years. I have one comment to make, and that is, where is the efficiency and equity for the 3 affected communities?
Speaker number 11.
My name is Roy Murray. I'm a resident of Hunters Ridge. I'm surprised at the number of sites that have been used to demonstrate that you've looked far and wide. Of the 11 sites you've got, 6 of them were in the DRGR. And I'm surprised that after looking at the DRGR first site, you didn't consider, what's the point of looking at the other 5? I'm also surprised that if you knew about the 2 sites which had railway tracks, those were never going to be considered. So what I'm left with are 3 sites. But the 8 sites that I've discounted, and you should have discounted, were make-wits. You're only making up the numbers to make it look good. What we were left with was Bonita Grande, the 80-acre site, of which only 20% is in the DRGR and should be looked at again. Then you had Imperial Parkway, which apparently was rejected because it was too close to the I-75. So, in fact, we had one site, Hunter's Ridge, and you put that juxtaposition, or you put the school juxtaposition to Hunter's Ridge residential area. I've looked at the plan, and I, for one, am going to hear music whenever you have a football game, and whenever I'm here. You'll have noise generally, you'll have traffic, you'll have light pollution, and quite honestly, it's not a satisfactory site. The one thing about your research that I would criticize is saying that property values will be enhanced because the school is going to be there.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Speaker number 12.
Okay, I'm 13.
Okay,
My name is
13,
Diane
thank you.
Paul. I live in Worthington. I've worked in schools for a long time, and I've talked to school boards, and I find that you do not care about what we have to say. You're making it very clear that you do not care what we have to say. We are working people just like you. We've lived in communities. We've concluded our working life and raised our children. We are in our non-money generating years. We don't want to see our property values go down, or we need to be able to sell our homes when the time comes for the correct amount of money. You have the best interest of children at heart. I'm asking you to have the best interest of the seniors who live in Bonita Springs at heart. All 3 communities do not have children. We don't want it at this site, nor do we want it across the street on the north side of Bonita Springs, east of 75. The school belongs west of 75, where there are children. I have a friend across the street from me who is a realtor. She says when she brings people to a property and there's a school nearby, they say, "Don't even take me there. I will not look at it." That's what we would be facing, and we're asking you not to do that to the seniors in our years where we want to live in paradise and live in peace, which is what you will want when you retire.
Speaker number 14.
My name is Al Catullo. I'm a Worthington resident. I attended the meeting yesterday at the Worthington Country Club that encompassed the 3 communities, the Worthington, Hunters Ridge, and Quail West, the 3 that will be impacted directly. I also am a realtor, and I echo what the previous speakers have said. If you're a young family growing up with small children, it's a positive to be within walking distance to the elementary school, the middle school, whatever the case. Your own prerequisites in positioning a school states that a certain percentage of the children must be within walking or biking distance, provided you have sidewalks and lanes, crosswalks for them to cross. I don't believe that those criteria are going to be met with the proposed site. Also, the proposed site seems to be, and I'll echo another gentleman's statement, and I'm keeping my own time, I'll help you out with that. The other gentleman proposed a point which is very valid. It seems like we have a timeline. We want to be ready for the 2018 fall semester. We're going to build a school right here because we're out of options. That's what the board appears to be in a position to decide, that this is the only site, so that's where it's going, even if it doesn't meet the criteria that the students are in walking or biking distance. You're not going to save any money when it comes to busing, whether you're busing them 9.4 miles north or you're going to bus them 8.7 miles south, or whatever the numbers are. You just have the same expense. You're not saving. You are going to impact the three communities. You're going to ruin the property values. Trust me. I know you don't live there,
Thank you,
so
sir.
you
Your time is
probably
up.
don't care.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Speaker 16 through 20, please come to one of the two podiums. Number 15, please, sir.
My name is Paul Shore. I'm a resident of Hunters Ridge. I thought the presentation that was made was very good, but I felt it was one-sided. I didn't think it really was a balanced presentation. I would appreciate if you would add a couple more slides to it, which would show the impact of having a school located in this community. As was pointed out, you have 3 senior residential communities. There are no children other than grandchildren in these communities. This would be upsetting and really changing the overall quality of life in these areas. I asked you if you had older parents, and I see you're not exactly young people yourself, but if you had older parents, would you want the school built in this community so that their property values would be affected? Would you want to be living there, and would you want your property values affected? How would you feel about that? This property value probably represents a good portion of your financial security. Would you want that jeopardized in these later years of your life when you don't have really the means to bring in fresh new monies?
Speaker number 16.
My name is Jane Shaw, and I did a lot of research, more on the safety factors around schools and pedestrians and teenage drivers. And what we are not speaking about and addressing, and what hasn't been addressed by people up to now, is the amount of fatalities. Over 50% of fatalities in for pedestrians is the ages 16 through 19, and it's on the rise. And the reason it's on the rise is that when children leave school, and this was a report that I came across, that they did outside of watching schools, high schools around the nation, that children are using, the second they get out of their classrooms, they're putting on their electronics. And they are diverted from watching traffic lights, crossing streets. They use means to jaywalk to get to the other side as fast as they can. There is a major increase of fatalities. And I don't know who on this board would want to be the person to go to the parent that has lost a child because of a pedestrian accident, a traffic accident with a vehicle, a crash that might have been caused by construction trucks that go up and down this road, people that are coming and going and racing off of I-95 that make right turns on reds when they're not supposed to, because it's one of the only exits that have no right turn on red because there's no visibility of traffic going from west to east, going over that Bonita Beach overpass. It is a very serious location. And I made a very strong effort to look up when the most recent accident took place, and it was September of this year, 2015, right at the intersection of I.
Thank you. Speaker 17.
Good afternoon. My name is Rod Furch. I'm a resident of Hunters Ridge. What I've heard today is that the school district owns or purchased and has owned owns land previous for the expansion of the school district. Now I'm hearing you want to trade that or sell it to buy other land. It doesn't make any sense to me. especially when you're saying that the purpose of trying to sell the land and not build on that particular site, and I don't know if it was number 1 or number 2, is that it is because it's within 9 or 10 miles of another high school. I used to live in a community where there were 3 high schools within 10 miles, and it was, that was no problem. It was fine. So I just don't understand why we can't build on a site that we already purchased, and the only viable reason I heard was that it's within 10 miles of another school, high school. To me, that's absurd. Thank you for your time.
And the other property is within 1.5 miles.
Speaker 18.
I'm Joanne Schoen from Hunters Ridge. It was interesting, you had 2 properties that the reason you weren't interested in using them and the argument you used against using them was that they were 2 miles from I-75. That's very interesting because the Burnwood property is roughly 1,000 feet from 75. The other thing is that if you take the road away from our front entrance to Hunters Ridge, we would have to put it across from Worthington. We would have to create a back gate because by the fire regulations, you have to have 2 exits or an entrance and an exit. Who's going to pay for this? Who's going to pay for the reconstruction of those entrances? Thank you.
Speaker 19.
Hi, Board. George Fox. What you're seeing here, the purchase of the 40 acres on Tower Road using certificates of participation. The school board went and did what it wanted to do without getting any public input and bought a bad piece of property that probably can't sell now because it's in DRGR. This brings us back to how you finance these projects. You got 3 choices. You either borrow it with using the credit card, the certificates, you use construction bonds where you get public input, or you use a half-cent sales tax where you could actually have cash to go in and buy property that may even have building on it and get the right piece of property between the 241s where the children are. Anything built east of the interstate is a disaster. It's only 2 lanes to and fro under Bonita Beach Road. And everybody's right. I mean, it would be a traffic disaster to put this school where it is. Anyways, go for the half-cent sales tax. That is absolutely the best way of doing it. If not, make an offer on an existing piece of land contingent upon getting a construction bond approved by the public so they can have input on where their school goes, the one that they own, the one that they pay for, and give them the best way to pay for it and put the school on the best piece of property you can possibly get, regardless of the condition that it's in right now. That is the number 1 thing. Okay, thank you, Board.
Speakers 21 through 25, please come to one of the 2 podiums. Speaker number 20.
Hi. There's never going to be the right location for the school. There's never going to be the ideal one. That's the job of the architects, engineers, and designers to figure out how to make it work, how to make it safe, and put everything in motion. I'm a father of 4 kids. I have a wife, and sometimes people like me want to live in places where you're closer to a school. I have a business in Bonita Springs, and I need a school in Bonita Springs to attract the right people. My peers in the councils I belong to need a school in Bonita Springs to attract the right people for us to employ, to pay taxes, to buy houses and the like, and they want to live, they want to live in these areas. The right things to do here are what's right for the kids. I mean, I grew up that way, and I still feel that way today. Yeah, it's inconvenient for some of us here. I'm 57 years old, and all of us make sacrifices, but it's what's right for the kids. My opinion is they deserve a school now. Build them a school, hire the right teachers, hire the right staff, give them the best they can get, and move on with it.
Speaker 21.
I'm Bob Picar. I'm from Hunters Ridge. What I see this board doing is shoehorning. You're trying to fit a full-service high school into a piece of property where it won't fit. And you're trying to fit a schedule in a time frame where it won't fit. If you look at this piece of property, how much of it is really going to be used of this 43 acres, concerning that it is so close to 75? The two parcels to the west are too close to 75 to be used for your sports center. They can only be used for some ancillary usages. The property is not designed, it is not feasible to put a full-service high school there. If you were saying we are going to put an academic center there, fine, but find someplace else for your sports complex, because it doesn't all fit, it won't work there. Be creative. Stop trying to follow the path that you're following. Look at some creative planning. Thank you.
Speaker 22.
Thank you. My name is Jim Cito. I live at Hunters Ridge. I want to just bring forward a couple of points and questions. When you cite a statute for access to a railroad, I'd like you to cite the statute number, because the statute that I've researched on the Florida State statute cites that insofar as practical, the site must not adjoin a rail. That's insofar as practical. Now, I presume that, I know your site committee has gone out to look at these sites. I would hope that you all would have as well. I'll call your attention to one specific site, number 11. The information for the rejection was quoted as the railroad access and the layout of the property. Well, if you go by that property and look at it in detail, which I've done, and which I have laser sighted the distances, that property is actually deeper than the Bonita Springs property that's in front of Hunters Ridge. That property number 11 is 250 yards deep. Our property in front of Hunters Ridge is 200 yards deep. It also has, it meets a lot more of the criteria. Now, I know if you were putting a store or a school on a raw piece of land, you couldn't put it within 500 feet of liquor or tobacco. That property in number 11 has no interference from 75. It has no interference from communities. And it's right between the two middle schools that feed the high school.
Which property are you talking about? Because I thought property 11.
I'm sorry, number 2,
Thank you.
not 11.
Thank you.
2 was ours.
Okay.
All right, the other thing I would ask you to think about is we've done this a lot in great football states like Texas, where the county will establish a county football stadium and let practice fields go at the high school level. Then they come to the center for the actual stadium, and you can build a fine property and do that. So,
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Number 23.
My name is Don Huppridge. I'm the general manager at Hunters Ridge. I've been at Hunters Ridge for 25 years. During that 25-year period, I want you to know that I spent a tremendous amount of time working with the Lee County officials, making sure that we were always in compliance with the various codes and ordinances. Hunters Ridge Country Club is a 275-acre wetland preserve. Over that time, we have worked repeatedly and daily with all the agencies. And you know what? Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Sometimes it costs a little bit more money, but you want to make sure you do it right. Okay. We know that you're in a very difficult position. We respect that, but we're asking that you do the right thing. When you go to the city, you're going to ask the city, if you continue to move on with the site, you're going to propose to the city of Bonita Springs to vacate Hunters Ridge Boulevard. Please know that if you do that, there will be damages. And we talk about eminent domain, but there's also reverse eminent domain where damages can be rewarded. We talk about losing our front entrance. You want to take away our front entrance and put a football field. Please know that Hunters Ridge is a 30-year-old community. Hunters Ridge Boulevard has always been our front entry, and we developed that community with that in mind. Worthington is about a 28-year-old community. Quail West, over 20 years. These are 3 beautiful golf and country club communities. Please know that we love and are very proud of our communities. And please also know that we will do whatever we deem necessary to defend and protect our homes.
My name is Ed Fitzgerald. I live in Worthington Country Club for the past 24 years. I came to Bonita just after graduating high school. I feel your pain in the selection process and wish you well. And I want you to know that your final decision will be supported by all of us in Bonita, because we believe you are professionals, elected city and town officials. And being an elected official, I just want you, this board, to remember, don't let anybody else except you make this decision. Now, in reference to the sites, it's incomprehensible that the Hunters Ridge site can be considered at all, to be very honest with you. And you know all the reasons, and they know all the reasons, and believe me, they mean it when they say you're going to have problems. You'll have problems at Worthington and Quill West also. Your 80-acre site up on Tower Road is an insult to the city for lots of reasons. That DRGR is almost sacrosanct. I want to give you my wife's opinion. I was forced to do this. Imperial Parkway is my wife's site selection, and you should give that grave consideration. But when coming down to final decisions, you have to prioritize someplace and you have to get someplace. You're not going to like what I hear, some people. I could live with Bonita Beach Road and Bonita Grande Road. And it's because the other sites are so bad. But you're going to have to make a decision. Decisions are tough, by the way. So be careful. You're going to come up with something. We're going to support you. But believe me, you're not going to get out of here in safe condition if you think Hunters Ridge is your choice. Okay. I can tell you about traveling in high schools, by the way. I was born in the Bronx, and I was fortunate enough to be qualified to go to Cardinal Hayes High School in the Grand Concourse, except the first year I had to go to 14th Street, St. Christopher's, and 10th Avenue.
Your time is up.
And the subway ride.
Yeah. Speakers 26 through 28, please approach one of the two podiums. Speaker 25.
My name is Margaret Carroll, and I'm a resident of Hunters Ridge. I want to know if any consideration has been given to looking at property in the San Carlos area. That would eliminate a second high school in Estero, and it also would be a shorter trip from the overflow of the children in Estero to come down to Bonita Spring, to be a far less trip for them. No one likes their kids on the buses for a long period of time. I also understand that the two parcels on the west side of Hunters Ridge Boulevard, as well as the Burnwood property, are approximately worth $16 million. Does the school board actually have that kind of money for property? Even if they're willing to, trade off the Three Oaks property, can they bear the expense? Along with all the other issues that have been brought up here today, I think that you're making a big mistake, and we would appreciate you reconsidering this. Thank you for your time.
Speaker 26.
Okay, I'm Paula Ferroni. I've lived in Hunters Ridge for 10 years. Excuse my Boston accent, I'll try to get through this. You say that your most important interest is the proximity of the students and the safety of transportation. Well, do you know how when seniors and younger drivers collide, what's going to happen there with all the traffic? Not a pretty picture, and somebody commented on that. Also, the Imperial looks to me to be a better site. I think you should go back and revisit some of those. And I'm going to read some things that were cut off. And Bonita Beach Road has an overwhelming amount of cars from the proposed hotel, which is where the old Albinsons was located, the flea market traffic on Fridays, and there are seven communities, some yet unbuilt, that use Bonita Beach Road. My concern is the evacuation of Hunters Ridge, Worthington, and Quail West, and only on that one little road. If we have an evacuation, what they told me yesterday, well, school won't be in session then, it doesn't matter. If you take Hunters Ridge Boulevard away from us, we're not going to be able to get out, and many of us will die on that road. That's pretty scary. That's the most scary thing. Bonita Beach will have, Bonita Beach Road will also have Logan Boulevard joining us in 2017, and to avoid their traffic on Immokalee and even as far down as Pine Ridge. And there'll be maybe 400 high school cars by then and 30 buses, and this is going to exasperate all of us trying to use our one and only entrance, which, by the way, is illegal. And I want to know if the school board is going to pay for another entrance if they take that away from us. Thank you for your consideration. We are in favor
Speaker
of a high
27,
school,
thank you,
but
ma'am.
just
Your time
no.
is up.
Manning. I live in Hunters Ridge. I think a lot of valuable comments were made today. I hope you were listening. I think I heard one of you say of the rapid growth of the schools. There isn't room for rapid growth on Bonita Beach Road in front of Hunters Ridge. New developments for the old people, like myself, are growing by leaps and bounds. How is that going to affect them? We have to think about the youth and their education, but we also have to remember the elderly people who have worked very hard to get where they are. Don't take it away from us.
We had 28. Is there a speaker 28?
No. Okay. Thank you all very much for coming before the board. We do listen, we do hear, and we do appreciate your taking your time to make statements about things that are of great concern to you and things that we need to take into consideration as we move forward. So thank you. It's now time for board comments, and at this point, the board may choose to respond to some of the things that have been said or may not. But this is our opportunity to talk to one another about things that we want to address. So you're welcome to stay or leave. And we will start with, I guess I'll wait for some people to go.
Can we say that the meeting's not over? Albert.
Okay, I think we'll try to go ahead with board member comments. If we could have the audience quiet, please. Thank you. We'll start with Mrs. Fisher.
Thank you, and in the interest of time, I'll keep it brief. One thing I do want to say is that we do listen, we are listening, and we certainly will take everything that was said into consideration. Please be assured of that. I had a brief legislative update. Today in the committee session, they are looking at House Bill 119, which is for flexibility in building, which could have an effect in reducing the cost to build a school or to expand a school. I wanted to compliment all of the students who entered our Red Ribbon Week athletic contest. We had students from schools across the county, and they are amazing. They are doing activities that are keeping them healthy and drug-free, sports, arts, volunteering, and they obviously are doing their academics because almost every one of them had excessive grade point averages. They were really role models, and we're in good hands with our kids. There will be some Veterans Day celebrations that I plan to attend. On the 6th, I'll be at Gulf Middle School. They always have a wonderful, well-attended community thank you to our veterans. And on the 10th of October, I'll be at Cape Elementary in Skyline. I had an opportunity to attend the Early Childhood Policy Board meeting. They elected their officers, who are parents. They have a parent university and keep the parents very involved with their small children. They have received a grant and have combined it with their funding to allow for more eligibility for pre-K for our young kids. We know that it all starts there, and we certainly support the work that they do. They reviewed their strategic plan, and they talked about concerns for safety and getting more kids into school because they have a waiting list of over 780 students at this time, which is unfortunate. On Friday the 13th, the school counselors, social workers, nurses, and school psychologists will be having a growth day at Hodges University, and I'm hoping that all administrators will encourage their student service personnel to attend. On the 14th, Achieva Credit Union is sponsoring a 5K at Sunsplash in Cape Coral. It's for the Coconut Festival, and I want to thank Achieva for the amount of support they give to our schools in the form of classroom grants. And with that, I was just going to say one thing. The Drug Free Coalition had a run for prevention, and at the Red Ribbon Awards, they presented me with first place in my age group. Well, some of you in here will understand. It's not real hard to come in first when there's nobody else in your age group running. So that's it. Thank you.
Mrs. Dozier.
Thank you. I have a couple of things, and I will keep it brief as well. I attended the Salvation Army Board of Directors meeting, and at that meeting, they asked that different businesses and organizations be a part of something called the Angel Giving Tree. I contacted the superintendent and asked him if we could put an angel tree here due to the fact that they sent out flyers to every single elementary school age children, and they were offered to all of the middle school children, taking them home so that their parents could select for them to be a part of this program if they wanted to. And what you do is you take an angel off the tree, and there's one item that's a needy item that the child needs, and the other item is something that they wish for. So Dr. Atkins graciously agreed for us to do that. We don't know exactly how many angels we are going to have here, but we will have some, and I certainly know that I'm going to take some angels home. I'm also want to tell you that FSBA, the Board of Directors, sent out a resolution on testing, and they're going to send it to the governor asking that, basically a statement saying that the current testing situation in the state of Florida is not working. Look at it. You know, you need to get a committee. The committee should be made up of teachers, educators, and so forth. We'll see where that goes, and I'll keep you informed about that. I want to speak to the people that are here that spoke. I appreciate the fact that you spoke, and we do listen when people come before us to speak. It's something that I have always done since I've been on this board, is listen to what the community has to say about different issues. You know, somebody said, and I don't remember who it was, but somebody said there's not a perfect site, and that is absolutely true. There's not a perfect site. Is the site that staff is bringing forward the best site? I'm not sure. In fact, I see other properties that I think we might be able to use. However, I'm going to defer to my esteemed colleague, because this is in her backyard, so to speak, and I'm going to listen to what she has to say because I value her opinion, and I value her opinion from this community as well as listening to all of you. And with that being said, I will also tell all of you that, I've heard a lot of people, not in my backyard. I'm very proud to say in my backyard I do have a high school, and I'm very proud of the fact that I have a high school in my backyard, literally. In fact, I laugh and I tell the principal of that particular school that I can stand in my bedroom window and look into his office, so he better be doing what he needs to be doing, or I will be watching. And as far as the noise and the lights, and I mean literally, I will tell you that I can remember only 2 incidences, and we've been living in this neighborhood for 20-something years. I can only remember 2 incidences where the noise level really bothered me, and it was because they had an all-state band conference there, and the band started in the morning, and it went until late in the afternoon, and by the end of the day, I did have a headache, I have to tell you that. But that was only twice, in the 20-something years that I've lived there, it was only twice. And, we want to be a good neighbor. We're going to look for the ways to be a good neighbor, and I'm sure that when Mrs. Morgan brings us information for what her druthers are, I'm sure she's going to have taken in all consideration, and because this is in her backyard, I will be deferring to her. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Mrs. LaRiviere.
I do appreciate those of you who stayed. And please let the others know that we do care about what everyone thinks, and we do listen. And today was our briefing. There has not been a decision. They're just sharing with us what staff has found and what's been brought forward to them. So there is no decision made. We're still in this thinking and trying to figure out what we do. So I wanted to share that before I went on to the other business. I had the pleasure of going to visit James Stevens Academy last week. It was a pure delight. Tommy Bowen and his staff are doing a phenomenal job at the school. It's wonderful to walk into the classrooms and seeing teachers who have a comfortable level with allowing students to be active learners and still be in control. It's a good balance that you see in the classrooms, and I really loved hearing what Mr. Bowen said. We've got to teach the whole child, and we've got to think about all the things our children come to school with all of their needs, and really trying to emphasize that there. And then from there, I went to the Cape Coral Technical College, and I now gone there and to the Fort Myers Technical College, and I am just amazed at what we are able to provide our young adults, because that's why they're hence called a college. They come out with salaries that are far higher than a beginning teacher will ever make. And they come out with skills that help the industries within our area. And so very impressed. Also impressed to know that I did let my person know that I go to for my pedicures and my manicures, that I will be going to the ones at the technical colleges every so often, so that they get a chance to play with my toes. And yesterday, I had the pleasure of going to Veterans Park Academy to assist with distribution of thesauruses, or thesauri, depending on which way some people want to do the plural form. Those 4th graders were so thrilled to get them. And I had the pleasure of, they said, well, you go up there and you say something. So what did I do? I taught. And we went through and I showed them how you use a thesaurus, and we talked about the guide words and different aspects of it. And the kids were just thrilled. So I am very proud to be a member of Rotary and to be able to wear 2 hats yesterday and serve students in our area. And for those of you who are not going to be going to the meeting on November the 9th at Hunters Ridge, we will be hosting a legislative session forum here in the boardroom. that is sponsored by our District Advisory Committee. They have organized and brought in together some of our representatives, and they've already prepared some preliminary questions to ask, but they will also be taking questions from the floor. And we hope everyone is very pointed with their questions that they ask them. And is that at 6? I think it's at 7. Am I correct?
The DAC?
The DAC.
DAC is at 6.
6, so it is, well, I didn't know if they made a different time for this. Okay, it says, so it will be 6 o'clock here. So I encourage those of you who are not at the Hunters Ridge meeting to come and be a part of that. And, and the only question I have is, and I agree, I need to defer anything having to do with the high school to you, Ms. Morgan, but there was a thought that occurred to me. And I heard people say that the property 9, the 80 acres on Terry Street, that they said that it was 20% was in the DRGR. And so I just want if somebody could check to find out that determination of how much. If we can find out. Evidently, they said there had been a recent change. So at some time.
And that's it?
That's it.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to address a couple of things with respect to the Bonita property. First, and the timing and everything else. First of all, sorry about that. People have said, let's wait. Well, the problem that we have, I'm getting feedback. That's why I'm trying not to be on top of the mic. I apologize. We do have a problem with respect to time because essentially Estero is accommodating us by allowing us to put a temporary school on the site for 1 year in order to start that freshman class off. But to be candid, if we're going to be looking beyond 2018, the reality is that we're going to have to make a decision as a board about what we're going to do to accommodate the student growth. If we can't build, and if we can't set up our academic program to be prepared to build, then we're looking at year-round school, or we're looking at joint session because we have no place to put these kids. So there is a real time concern here. We can't operate a second high school on the Estero campus beyond 1 year. It's just not feasible, the demand on that physical plant. And we can't keep stacking these kids up at Estero and South because the taxing on the plant as well as the impact on the educational quality becomes a factor. So I just want you to understand that time constraint is real. We're going to be faced with another decision if we can't build, and that's going to be to tell the public that in some areas of this county, kids are going to have to go to school either year-round or double session, and then we're going to have an equity issue there. The second thing is someone brought up lack of planning. And it's true that the board did not get excited about the need to build something in Bonita for really until the last 18 months. And that's really a function of what happened with the economic situation in 2008. You know, our growth stabilized. We were on a very fast growth track. Our growth stabilized. We were in a financial crunch because of cutbacks for both operational funding and capital funding that were imposed by the state. So we did not anticipate the kind of rapid growth that came with the resurgence of the economy. The growth in the Lee County population, and we're growing approximately 1,500 to 2,000 students a year in Lee County. The growth is primarily in Bonita Estero and Lehigh. And so, yes, maybe we should have had some foresight a little bit earlier, but, you know, I personally am loath to criticize the people who came before me or me when I first came on the board. Secondly, thirdly, with respect to planning, we do have a problem in this county. The problem in this county is that the county commission and the city commissions, you know, permit growth, encourage growth for economic reasons or for property sales, but they do not require that municipalities in the county allocate property for the public institutions that create quality of life for the people who will be living in those communities. And so this district was faced when we built 22 schools in 10 years because of the growth that took place in the 90s and 2000s, also with respect to the cap on class size, there isn't property where people live because property hasn't been set aside. The property we acquire is in commercial areas, it's in industrial areas, it's on the edge of residential areas. That is something that we struggle with, and it will be a problem forever unless we as Lee County and all of the elected officials in Lee County get serious about how we're going to plan and organize communities of the future. And finally, I would say that although it may not have been apparent to a lot of people, there was a lot of concern when it was recognized that the community wanted, Bonita community wanted a high school. When we proposed putting it at the Tower Road site and there was the pushback from the community, we recognized that there was enormous interest in having this school, but there was going to be a concern about where it was located. And I can tell you that the business community and the city council have really engaged proactively staff behind the scenes with our staff, trying to figure out how we're going to deal with this. And what you're seeing is what the best minds and the staffs of the city council, the school district, and commercial property developers in this area have come up with. So where do we go from here? Well, now we're having our public meetings. We now know that there's pushback from you all in the Hunters Ridge community. We know we need to talk to you. You've brought some very specific concerns to us that were not addressed today, or at least not addressed directly today. We owe you an answer on that. We have to continue to have these conversations, but I am here to tell you as the representative from District 3 that we have a time constraint. We have a sense of urgency. I am not committing one way or another on this, but I have great respect for the work that our staff has done, enormous respect for the work that our staff has done trying to solve this problem. So, you know, I'm interested in the conversation going forward, but there will be a deadline, and so we all need to get together and make certain that we've done as much as we can to understand each other's positions and do what we can to accommodate each other's needs and concerns. And I apologize for the length, but I think that you all are entitled to hear from me as your representative about, you know, sort of where we are and put it in context. Mr. Martin, do you have comments?
None this afternoon, thank you.
Dr. Adkins, do you have comments?
Just a couple real brief ones. With respect to a couple of the things that the speakers were stated earlier, first of all, just to speak to the Imperial Parkway property, a couple people alluded to the fact that that was rejected due to its close proximity to 75. Actually, we had listed it in the presentation as something that we would have considered. The difficulty with that particular piece of property was twofold. One was the cost of the property it was offered was well beyond our budget at the time with the available resources we had. And then the second is that it currently now is under contract pretty much, I believe, at that asking cost. So that's what's taking it, you know, kind of out of the equation. It's not the closeness to 75. I do appreciate some of the comments that were made regarding a couple more slides that balance the presentation so that that we do actually address what some of the challenges are of any site that we're putting forward. I also appreciate the comments that were made about, you know, creative planning. We do have some things that we would like to share about some of these sites that when we get in maybe a more informal environment, when we come down to Hunters Ridge, we can talk about, you know, the gate, for example, and maybe some thoughts that we have around that if that were the particular piece of property. And we can also, you know, get into a little bit more extended, more casual conversation, or at least less formal conversation around this. So I will be down there, as will Mr. Mora, and then I believe Mr. Snell, who is also, he's in charge of our facility development and construction, and so we would be happy to go down there and answer any questions. And that's all I have at this time.
Great, thank you very much. And that concludes our briefing, and we'll reconvene, I think, at 5:45 for a musical presentation.